now. You are live on Patreon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome, my YouTubers. Welcome, and happy to have you. And trust that you will stay with us for the entire program. This is the Politics Plus Network, and this is the Hello Neighbor Show. My name is Hello Neighbor, and my co-host tonight is Caroline. She's in Florida, and I'm in Kingston, Jamaica. Welcome to my friends on YouTube. By the way, Patreon, big up yourself and welcome to the show. Those of you who are on TikTok, great to be here with you. Fantastic. I had a little scare on the weekend, but God is good. And there may be someone out there watching me tonight who know what I'm talking about. Just know that everything is what it is. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, there are so many things that we can talk about tonight. The news continues to surround NARA, the NARA debate. The news continue to surround the NARA debate. Tonight I'm going to tell you about the naughty vote, the PNP's naughty vote. I thought it was a naughty vote of the comrades in Parliament. By the way, I heard Cliff Hughes saying that Mark Golding is a very good legislator. I don't know about that. I was looking into that statement made by Hughes, whether Golding is a good legislator. What do you think about that? I don't know about that. I don't know that good legislators take the position that they take, but that is Hughes's opinion. I get the feeling also that the government is not moving with the type of alacrity that I would like. This bill requires speed, and reconstruction requires speed. Prices are going up in Jamaica. If you go to the pump, if you go to the supermarket, there is a clear indication that the prices are going up. I hear the minister in Parliament today suggesting that they're going to move the timeline for fare increases forward. So taximen are going to get a fare increase. You know what is called the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, the basket of goods that they use to measure inflation. And inflation is a tax on the poor, something the government will need to watch, because there are some concerns in terms of these price increases. Mind you, it is out of the government's control. But, in an environment like this, you can have some amount of abuse. And CARICOM is pushing on food security and climate financing. The question is, can we feed ourselves before the storms feed on us? It's an important question that regional governments are asking. Can we feed ourselves? So these are some of the issues that is on the agenda. So we're here not just to give you news, but we're giving you a choice. Because Jamaica has missed many opportunities in our history. The 70s, the 90s, FINSA, And all of these started as headlines we ignored. But every rebuilt nation, from Rwanda to Singapore, started as a headline someone took seriously. And so we are going to continue to explore the NARA vote and to take you to Parliament so that you will get an understanding of where your country is. Okay, so the first thing I want to do tonight is to play for you something Miss Nikisha Burchell said in the Parliament. Listen to this. This is Miss Nikisha Burchell. I do not have the video, but see if you can check out the audio for me.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you breaking news from out of Parliament. Yesterday, the mace was touched. Yes, touched. So we came here to Parliament to check on the mace to see how the mace is doing. Hello, Mace. Tell us what happened.
I was minding my business, as one does, symbolizing authority as we colonial vestiges do, when suddenly I was lifted.
Lifted? Oh, really? Wow. How did that make you feel?
Well, I must say it was rather shocking. Quite the disturbance. I haven't experienced such contact in years.
Not since Edmund Bartlett.
But you're fine though, correct?
Yes, I am fine.
Well, there you have it. We can all settle down now because the mace is fine. Now let's talk about what really happened, because before the mace became the headline, members of Parliament were trying to speak. Angela Brown-Burke was ignored when she tried to speak. Mark Golding, ignored. Philip Paulwell, Omar Newell, Isat Buchanan, Mike On, standing. Sometimes they were heard, sometimes they weren't. They tried to catch a speaker's attention.
No, it doesn't make sense to turn on your mic again, member. We are finished.
But sometimes they were even asked to state why they needed to speak. Before they could even speak, they were asked to confirm whether their point was new before their microphones were turned on by the speaker.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against?
Hold on, man. But
Divide. Clark?
Okay. All right. I think we have had enough of this absurdity. You know, I have said in the past that some of the people we have in the Parliament are going to embarrass us here. And Miss Nikisha Burchell is not a very good parliamentarian. I've tried to find something positive about her, and I find her behavior to be rather crass, not impressive at all. She's a drama queen. Parliament is not a joke, And when you have someone like Miss Burchell being a parliamentarian, you have to question the seriousness of Parliament. You have to question the seriousness of Parliament. The symbols of Parliament are not props, Miss Burchell. And when an elected official dismisses the mace as just a colonial emblem, she isn't decolonizing, she's delegitimizing. And I believe that reconstruction demands respect. Miss Burchell don't have no respect for the Parliament. She wouldn't put on so much lipstick. Miss Burchell, go easy on the lipstick, man. Go easy on the lipstick. Respect for institutions. Respect for process. Respect for the people who elected you. More than a comedian. She's a constituency comedian. a constituency comedian. Let me see if I can turn this up a little bit. My volume is all the way up. Let me address something, Miss Nikisha Burchell. Nikisha Burchell, Member of Parliament for Southern St. James. Miss Burchell is suggesting that the mace was touched. Touched. Almost casually. It was touched. You know, Miss Burchell, could someone just touch you? Could someone just touch you, ma'am? Could somebody just pass and, you know, give you a little touch on your posterior there? Would you find that appropriate? It's disturbing that you think like this, you know, Miss Bird. Very, very disturbing. You know, it's nothing, because it's just a colonial emblem. That's what Miss Burchell is suggesting, that the mace is just a colonial emblem. Miss Burchell, with respect, you are absurd. That argument is absurd, ma'am. And that thinking should get you removed out of the parliament. Jamaica deserves better than absurdity from its parliament. It's amazing, and it's quite alarming, you know, and it's almost disappointing. Yes, the maize has colonial origins. Yes, that is true. But Parliament itself has colonial origins. The Parliament itself, and so does English language. English language has colonial origins. Where did we get the English language from? The English, Miss Burke, the English that you use to dismiss the maize is a colonial origin too, you know. It's from colonialism. It's from the colonial masters. And so does the very democracy that put you in the seat. Ms. Burchell, you don't even understand what you're saying, ma'am. You don't understand what you're saying, you know. Is it youthful exuberance or what? We don't burn down the house because we don't like the architect. We renovate it. We reclaim it. We reconstruct it. The mace is not a colonizer. It's a symbol. And symbols matter. This is not a rum bar. This is not Twitter. This is the people's house. And if you get into the people's house, ma'am, you are to act accordingly. Whatever cartoonist foolishness that. When you joke it away, you're not punching up at history. You're punching down at the institution that 2.8 million Jamaicans rely on to be serious. You're a very unserious woman. And I don't know how you got into that position. Believe me. And I say that with the greatest of respect. I mean, JCDC would do well recruiting you. But Parliament? Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I don't want to spend too much time on you, but Miss Burchell, you weren't elected to be a commentator, You were elected to be a custodian. You weren't elected as a commentator. Custodians don't laugh when the foundation gets kicked. They protect it. They improve it. They pass it on stronger. What is the legacy? To suggest that touching, disturbing, or disrespecting the maize is nothing. It's to tell every young Jamaican that rules are optional, that process is performative, that Parliament is a pantomime. It's a most disturbing piece. And that's how nations decay. Nations don't decay with a bang, but with a shrug. It's a slippery slope that Jamaica is going down when we start electing people who don't understand symbols, who don't respect the Parliament, and who don't even understand the vestiges of colonialism. We're in a moment of national reconstruction, NARA, infrastructure, debt reduction, real nation building. That work is impossible if the very people elected to lead it treat the chamber like a comedy club. Because you can't vote no to reconstruction while also voting no to the respect that makes reconstruction possible. If you think the maize is colonial, then table a bill to replace it. Design a Jamaican maize. Cast it from our backside. Let it be blessed by our clergy. That's reconstruction. But to touch it casually, then laugh, that's not decolonization. That's dereliction. And my neighbors, I'm not defending colonialism. I'm defending consequence. And a parliament that jokes about its own symbols will soon be a joke to its own people. And the people who don't respect their institutions will soon have none left to respect. And Miss Burchell, the people of South St. James did not send you to Gordon House to be edgy. They sent you there to be effective. So I'm asking, not as a Labourite, not as a critic, but as a Jamaican, take your responsibility more seriously. Stop joking it out. Start building it up. The Speaker of the House today addressed the matter. Let's listen to Miss Juliet Holdes speaking about what happened in Parliament last week.
I do so not to prolong controversy, but because some moments require more than silence. They require reflection, they require correction, and they require us as members of this honorable House to remind ourselves and indeed the country of the standards by which Parliament must conduct itself. Last Tuesday, during the committee stage of the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority Bill, the Honourable Member of St. Andrews Southwest removed the mace from its place in this chamber. The member was named under the standing orders, ordered to withdraw, and the House took a decision in relation to her suspension for the remainder of the sitting. Thereafter, the leader of opposition and other members of the opposition engaged in a standing protest and chants in open defiance of the authority of the chair and the order of the House. The record will speak for itself, but I must speak to what the moment means, because what occurred was not simply a breach of order by one member. It was a wider challenge to the authority of the chair and the orderly conduct of the House. The mace is not a decoration. It is not a prop. It is not an object to be used in protest. It is the symbol of the authority of this House. It represents the authority under which we meet, debate, disagree, vote, and make laws on behalf of the people of Jamaica. So when the mace is interfered with, the issue is not simply about an object being moved. The issue is whether the authority of the House itself is to be respected. That is why this moment cannot be reduced to political theater. It is not about government or opposition. It is about whether this parliament, which belongs to the Jamaican people, will be allowed to conduct the people's business with order, dignity, and respect. Members, values, and attitudes matter. Only today, many of us participated in Read Across Jamaica Day. We went into schools, read to children, encouraged them to learn, to listen, to reason, to respect themselves and others, and to become responsible citizens. What then is the example we set for those same children when we look at the parliament of their country? If a student believes that a teacher has been unfair, do we encourage that student to disregard the teacher, disrupt the class, seize what does not belong to them, and refuse to follow instructions? Or do we teach the student that there are proper avenues to raise concerns, challenge a decision, and seek redress? Of course, members of this House are not regarded as students, but the same principle applies here. A member may disagree with the chair. A member may disagree with a ruling or even believe that the process is unfair. But the answer cannot be disorder, defiance, or contempt for the institution. The standing orders itself provides the avenues by which members may raise objections, seek clarification, challenge procedures, move amendments, divide the House, and place their disagreement on the record. Those rules exist not to silence members, but to protect every member, including those in the minority. Order is not the enemy of democracy. Order is what makes democracy possible. I am particularly mindful of the sentiment expressed by some that an indigenous object which reflects and gives expression to our Jamaican identity is desirable. That process, however, requires constitutional reform and consensus. But let me hasten to point out, the events of last week were not merely about symbolism. At the center of our focus should be whether we are prepared to conduct ourselves with discipline and regard for rules. We as a parliament cannot promote indiscipline misconduct, and then require discipline of Jamaicans from all walks of life, including our children. However, some have sought to turn the issue into one concerning the maize and other colonial past. Regarding that narrative, I will state briefly. Public records will reflect that during the life of the last parliament, the executive arm of the state had moved to adjust the constitutional requirements and arrangements, but required consistency and consensus with the opposition. That wasn't achieved. Hence, the process has not advanced.
All right. So a little bit there from Mrs. Holness as she addressed the matter last week. I'm going to play for you again the PNP's take on it. And I want you to be aware of what is happening here. Jamaica.
Asking everyone to tap the screen and share the live. Please repost the live, please.
Jamaica need to listen. There are some people in Jamaica that have visas, they can leave. The majority of us have to stay right here. And what is on display in our parliament does not give confidence that our future is safe and secure, especially or particularly coming from the opposition People's National Party. And you know, Jamaicans are distracted, you know. There is this summer rhythm, Hilangoli ride. Yes, that's what Jamaicans are distracted about now. Everybody want the Hilangoli ride. Man figi girl money. That's what I hear everybody talking about. Yes. Everybody want a piece of the Hilangoli. Man figi girl money. That's what is taking over the country now. We have put the serious issues behind us and we keep advancing the mundane, things that don't really matter. Go and dance to your Hilangoli, yeah? And don't take a note of what is happening in your country. Listen to the pen.
Well, good evening, Jamaica. We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you breaking news from out of Parliament. Yesterday, the mace was touched. Yes, touched. So we came here to Parliament to check on the mace to see how the mace is doing. Hello, Mace. Tell us what happened.
I was minding my business as what.
That's a type of absurdity coming out of the opposition. The mace was touched. What's a big deal? And satire, cartoonish. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we try to deceive. What a shame. What a disgrace. Listen a little bit more to it, because it is important.
Undoes, symbolizing authority as we colonial vestiges do, when suddenly I was lifted.
Lifted? Oh, really? Wow. How did that make you feel?
Well, I must say it was rather shocking. Quite the disturbance. I haven't experienced such contact in years.
Not since Edmund Bartlett.
But you're fine though, correct?
Yes, I am fine.
Well, there you have it. We can all settle down now because the mace is fine. Now let's talk about what really happened, because before the mace became the headline,
That's a PNP Burchell responding. She don't understand. She don't understand what is happening. She don't understand. Let's move on. maybe we come back to that later on. I'm going to play for you now the most honorable
Are advocates for. There seems to be
Prime Minister in the Parliament last week addressing the Nara matter, and then I'll have a few comments on that. Listen to the Prime Minister addressing Parliament last week on the Nara matter.
Concern about centralization is a term used. That NARA seems to centralize power and authority in. Sometimes the criticism is centralizes it in the CEO or centralizes it in the minister. In the executive model, it is a deliberate strategy. The whole idea was that the diffusion of the responsibility is what caused the lack of performance, because you can't point on anyone to say you are responsible. And so when Dr. Carlton Davies crafted it, the rationale was to ensure that responsibility is not diffused, that there is one focal point for which accountability can be effective. There seems,
because if everyone is accountable, then no one is accountable. What the Prime Minister is suggesting is that the executive authority is so designed so you know who is responsible. Yes? And to me, that makes perfect sense. The Prime Minister is closing the NARA debate last week in Parliament. It is the major story in Jamaica. We should pay more attention to it. Let's go back to the Prime Minister.
To be concern about centralization is a term used. That NARA seems to centralize power and authority. And so when Dr. Carlton Davies crafted it, the rationale was to ensure that responsibility is not diffused, that there is one focal point for which accountability can be effective. That was the idea. And I would want Jamaicans to appreciate that your government is very sensitive to any concentration, any centralization that may lead to unregulated, unwieldy executive power. That's not our intention. But at the same time, Jamaica is in a different phase of its development. And we can claim to be in a different phase of our development because we have gone through a phase of our development where we haven't really analyzed it yet. In the sense, Madam Speaker, that our accountability, our anti-corruption and oversight framework is probably the most robust in the Caribbean. We spend billions of dollars. When you look at, so if you look at our oversight capabilities and what we have built, we have let's start with the Auditor General. Enshrined in our Constitution, high functioning. Nothing is exempt. And the Auditor General has moved from doing post-audits.
Okay, I want you to listen to this because the People's National Party and their surrogates, I see they are joined for all type of surrogates, trying to muddy the water. And remember that they have voted no. They have voted no to the Nara bill. There is this idea that Jamaicans are to believe that somehow the government's reconstruction bill is not designed to help the people. and somehow it invests authority or too much authority in the hands of the Prime Minister. What the Prime Minister is pointing out is that the way government operates, there are a number of institutions built into the system that holds the government accountable. Yes.
Neighbor,
Yes.
could you please turn up your volume on YouTube?
YouTube, I'm all the way up, so I may have to start speaking a little louder because I can't add any more volume. Okay. So there is nothing to suggest that the government is not being absolutely transparent and is holding itself accountable. And I think they should be commended for that. Let's go back to the Prime Minister.
To doing real-time audits. They have moved from doing accounting audits to doing performance-based audits. We have the Integrity Commission. We have the Corruption Prevention Act, which defines in a very comprehensive way corruption and as an entity to prosecute it. Outside of that, we...
By the way, I don't know this argument about corruption. You tell me, what are the scandals of this administration over the last 10 years? Name them. What are the evidence of corruption or scandals in this government? No, I'm not suggesting that it is a perfect government. And don't come here and tell me about Royal Reid and Wheatley and Montague. Don't tell me that. Because there is no perfect government in the world. The fact of the matter is that you judge a leader by how the leader responds when there are actions taken within their government that affects the trust of the people. And on all occasions, Holness acted in a way that advances trust in him and his government. Okay? So this is not a government riddled with scandals or corruption. It is not. There's no evidence to suggest that. No evidence at all. Okay? And I have a piece that I'm coming with the IC. The IC is investigating of the Prime Minister for the last 7 years. And it needs to stop. But that is for later on. Let's go back to the Prime Minister.
We have MOCA, not a part of the IC framework, but acts in that way on specific major organized corruption activity. Then we have the PAAC. Bear in mind that the PAAC is maybe it's 20 years old now, about 20, maybe 20, yeah. I brought the resolution to this house to reinstate the PAAC. And it has been very effective and was reformed to be the oversight of Parliament of the economic program of the fiscal rules. Our budget now must go through the PAAC. There is no entity of government that can escape the oversight of the PAAC, and that body is chaired by the opposition.
You hear that? There is no entity of government that escapes the PAAC chaired by Julian Robinson from the People's National Party. In other words, if the government was corrupt, the People's National Party would bring it up and expose it at the PAAC. Do you remember when Alder Shaw used to chair that committee? Almost every week, there was a new scandal breaking. The PNP need to come with a better argument. The People's National Party need a better argument as to why they are not supporting Jamaica's reconstruction. Mark Golding, why? Why did you instruct your members to vote no? When the government, through the bill, demonstrates accountability, why did they vote no? Why did you tell them to vote no? What further accountability do you want? Or do you want the Prime Minister to invite you up at Jamaica House to oversee the reconstruction? The PNP's argument is weak. It is weak. And all of their surrogates, all of their people online, all of their civil society groups are doing a disservice to the people of Jamaica, are holding up the people's reconstruction for political reasons. There's nothing else. I don't see anything else to say. Right? And that is why, 30 minutes to 8 o'clock, that is why I am going to make the comparison, the philosophical comparison between ourselves, independent in 1962, and Singapore, kicked out of Malaysia, independent in 1965. And today, Singapore is a wealthy nation, and Jamaicans are still struggling to buy patties. I hear them asking today whether or not we're going to be able to afford patties. Why? It's all linked, you know, Jamaicans, because we have missed our opportunities. And we have elected a group of people that have proven last week, Tuesday in Parliament, that they don't have the country's interests at heart. It's politics. It's had nothing to do with accountability. We have more than accountability structures in place, more than any other Caribbean island, not even the Great America. We are so strapped with bureaucratic systems that it has shackled our progress and development. What is the argument of the comrades and the PNP? More than they want to be obstructionists. Let's listen a little bit more to the Prime Minister.
Must continue to be chaired by the opposition. It is important that it is chaired by the opposition. So the oversight function of the government apparatus is significant. So when I spoke earlier about ensuring that legislation is efficient, you can't come back here now and then legislate a new framework separate and apart from the framework that is already legislated. We have a strong framework. Let the framework for oversight work.
Thank you. We have the framework. Yes, it is the same framework that is now holding the government accountable. And listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully. The government of the People's National Party in the 90s was a government that was corrupt. Human beings, by their very nature, need restraint. Some people may even say constraint. That is why you put systems in place. You don't give a cashier your cash. You put up a system, a POS system, point of sale system, and the point of sale system records what she cashes and provides you with a rollout at the end of the day. And an inventory. Systems keep people in check. We had weak systems in the 90s, and as a result of that, the government ended up being the most corrupt government we have ever had. And that is not up for debate. The Patterson government was a government where a lot of things went down wrong. Okay? Since that time, with help from multilaterals, the IMF, we have had better systems of accountability. And we see the result. Where are the scandals for the last 10 years? Where are they? Where are the scandals for the last 10 years? Why? Because the systems of accountability are stronger. A little more from the Prime Minister.
Every day, listen, the persons who are advocates for anti-corruption, they must continue to push. You can't ease up because you don't want government to become relaxed. But the Parliament has to be careful that it does not smother and suffocate the effectiveness of the public bureaucracy by an overlaying of procedures that have no relevance to outcomes. So we have gone through this phase in our development where we have been highly focused on anti-corruption. We must continue, but we are now going into a different phase where we have to ensure that our bureaucracy is efficient. It is not a wiping away or an undermining or a dismissing of the anti-corruption frameworks. No, it is. We will continue to push that and continue to spend the billions of dollars on it. But democracy must deliver prosperity.
Democracy must deliver prosperity. We're 63 years old. Get that, no man? Get that? The minimum wage in Jamaica is 17,000? When are we going to understand that democracy must deliver prosperity? Who is holding back that?
And I'm not the only one speaking in frustration about the slow pace of the government. It is said on both sides. This is what we meant when we say we have to pivot. So I think I've captured most of the issues. And again, I want to thank all the members who have participated, who have contributed. It has enriched the bill, and it is of procedures that have no relevance to outcomes. So we have gone through this phase in our development where we have been highly focused on anti-corruption. We must continue, but we are now going into a different phase where we have to ensure that our bureaucracy is efficient. It is not a wiping away or an undermining or a dismissing of the anti-corruption frameworks. No, it is. We will continue to push that and continue to spend the billions of dollars on it. But democracy must deliver prosperity.
Okay, so that's the Prime Minister closing the narrative.
That was the idea. And I would...
speaking about the whole matter of accountability, here the Prime Minister speaking about the legal structure. Let's go in and listen to the Prime Minister now speak of the legal structure.
To manage recovery is not something... No one can say that NARA is not a necessary formation in law. No one can say that having a structure to manage recovery is not something that is defensible and necessary. So I think there is the starting point, that NARA is necessary. I think, however, if I am permitted to offer some philosophical perspectives on the differences, that there is a very deep mistrust of government in the country, very deep. But underneath the mistrust of government generally, there is an even greater mistrust of executive power. That is really what it comes down to, a deep distrust of executive power. And by the way, this is not unique to Jamaica. It is a worldwide phenomenon for countries that have what is described as a liberal democracy. Democracy is liberal precisely because executive power is controlled and in many instances restrained. The challenge comes, Madam Speaker, when democracy cannot bring prosperity. That is where the challenge happens, because the assumption is that democracies will automatically bring prosperity to people. And that thinking is sometimes challenged in certain quarters. But I continue to maintain that democracy is the best form of government that we have. And that we must make our democracy. No one can.
Okay, so the Prime Minister is speaking about the use of executive authority in a democracy. Remember now, we're not an autocratic society. Democracy means that the people have a choice. You know, they elect their government and they can change their government. Listen to the Prime Minister speaking on the whole matter of executive power, which is also one of the areas that the PNP is objecting to.
That is where the challenge happens, because the assumption is that democracies will automatically bring prosperity to people. And that thinking is sometimes challenged in certain quarters. But I continue to maintain that democracy is the best form of government that we have. And that we must make our democracy work to deliver prosperity. The challenge is, how do we use executive authority without it trampling on the rights of the people? That is always the challenge. And that's why our system is designed as it is, where the members of parliament should come vigorously defending their positions to ensure that executive authority is restrained, but we have to be careful that executive authority is not constrained, because it is in the constraining, the over-limiting of the actual power to execute that the prosperity is actually delivered. And I would say this, I've been in this position of Prime Minister now for a decade, and it is a learning experience. I continue to appreciate the nuances of the office each day. And I will say to you that during the pandemic, the challenge of using executive authority was a real challenge for the administration. And indeed, they had to use executive authority as it relates to controlling movements and all kinds of other things that we had to do. And the former Attorney General at the time would have gone to great pains to advise and to say, we have executive authority, but we have to be so careful with it in how it is used. And I made sure that every executive direction that I gave, that I put my signature to, as I did it, I came to Parliament at the next sitting to bring the executive authority to Parliament for Parliament to have a say on it. And there were times when Parliament's say, though not by authority, couldn't change it, but because Parliament said you should consider, so you should consider that, we took that on and we made changes to many of the various orders for movement and gathering and all the other things that we had to do. That was, for me, at that time, the ultimate exercise of the executive authority. The lesson learned from it is that in a democracy, executive authority overused can be dangerous even for the person using it. No matter what, it leads to suspicion, frustration, and the view that you are restricting the freedoms of individuals at your own whim. And I would say that I suffered from that during the pandemic, even though in my mind I was acting to support and to promote the health and safety of the public. But there are many.
Let me just pause the Prime Minister and tell you something. I think Jamaica, if it is to advance, this is my personal view. If Jamaica is to be advanced, executive authority need to be exercised in greater measure. My personal view. Like Trump in the United States, presidents on day one can use executive authority to do many things. Jamaica, we have too much freedom here. And freedom in a society like Jamaica carries risk. Risk. And you wonder why we are where we are today. We're not serious about our development, you know. We have too much freedoms. Yes? And if we are to advance as a society, we need to have a discussion on to what extent are we as Jamaicans prepared to sublet some of our rights to the state so that we can benefit more. For example, there are some systems in Jamaica that just poor old people in their bed at night time can't even sleep because some sound man set up a big sound up, just a thump music. Now you tell me. So you see this whole matter of executive authority, yes, is something that we need to have a discussion on. To what extent, under the theory of the social contract, are the citizens prepared to subsume, give up some of their rights for the national good, in the national interest? I'd love to hear your views on this.
Jamaicans who felt that I restricted their movement. So I want to just use this as a basis to say, Madam Speaker, I am not seeking executive power for myself. It's dangerous. And executive power must be controlled, without question. I'm a firm believer in that. The question is, can we find a way to structure our business such that the use of the executive authority delivers the prosperity without taking away the freedoms, transparency, rights of the people? That's where it is at. I want to thank JET, the Jamaica Environmental Trust, and Jamaican for Justice. They wrote letters to me. The letter from JET was quite extensive. They obviously put a lot of time in going through the bill. They did take the time. And I have to say this, Madam Speaker, because lots of times there are persons who will just hear what is said, look at the headlines, don't know any details, form an opinion because there's always something called confirmation bias. Somebody who you like said something that you like, and therefore that's your position without doing the research. It's obvious that these two groups did their research and they put forward their concerns. I will say, Madam Speaker, that not everything that is proposed can be legislated, and not everything that can be legislated should be legislated. And the persons who are drafters, persons who understand the law far better than I do, would agree with that point, that you want the legislation to, one, be consistent with legislation that already exists. You want it to be consistent with the Constitution, and you want your legislation not to be complicated. You can have complex legislation, but you want the legislation to be easily interpreted, well understood, and direct and to the point. And so we try to bring a legislation here that creates a framework that is easily understood, easily interpreted, and gets to the point of what it is we want to achieve.
There you go. That's the Prime Minister on executive authority. Let me tell you this. The government, they have been very conciliatory. They have listened to the public. But guess what? How long we are going to wait? How long we are going to wait? Keep listening? Huh? And some of these civil society groups are proxies of the PNP, you know, writing long letter, right? Where were they in the 90s when Jamaica was sucking salt through the spoon? One little piece more from the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister here is speaking about the Joint Select Committee that the opposition wants to send the bill to. I don't think the Prime Minister is agreed with that at all. Let's go in for the final time and listen to the Prime Minister.
Select Committee. There is a point about bringing the bill to a Joint Select Committee.
Okay, so the PNP want to send the bill. They wanted to send the bill to a Joint Select Committee of the Parliament. And at the Joint Select, you would have a number of presentations from, you know, persons in society who want to contribute to the bill. The Prime Minister is arguing that it takes time. Let's hear the Prime Minister.
Let me be clear. We on this side, we have taken a decision that as far as possible, we're bringing all our bills to a Joint Select Committee. That's the decision that we took after the experience with the NIDS. Subject, of course, to emergency situations or great urgency. I have heard the undertaking that there would be a commitment on the side of the opposition to have the Joint Select Committee turned around very quickly. I mean, we accept the intention, but we know that it takes a little while. And on average, you're looking at 3 to 6 weeks at the minimum, and sometimes even longer. So I would say I'm being generous, I'm being euphemistic, but it takes a long time. So I would say, Madam Speaker, that I appreciate the opposition recognizing that the Joint Select Committees are not the fastest mechanism that they will try, but for this bill, urgency is important. And I start at this point about urgency. And I'm being very careful in the use of the term urgency, because I really should say it is an emergency. But I wish to point out to members who were in the House between 2009 and 2015 that this House, not under emergency powers, but under urgency, passed several important pieces of legislation that would oversee billions of dollars, including donor funds, without subjecting them to any committee review, any joint select committee review, including money bills, including the very fiscal rules, which are far more important than the Naira bill. There was not 1 ounce of criticism of that move. Not one. At that time, part of that time, I was leader of the opposition. And the members on my side will tell you that I gave directives. This is in the national interest. Participate. Make sure that our points are raised, but we are not going to stand in the way or try to make political points of something that is in the national interest. And I wish for that to be in the public record. The fiscal rules and all the others, some of the other money bills, all the other amendments that were made, went through without going to joint select committee. And not one journalist, not one of the commentators today said anything. So I just want that to be put in the public debate. The other point is that during this time of urgency, between 2009 and 2015, we had to, as a country, and I say we meaning government opposition, we had to mobilize the entire country for the reconstruction of our financial system. Essentially, that's what it was, our fiscal and financial system, the reconstruction of it. And what worked very well, particularly as it related to the managing the repayment of our debt with several debt exchanges, was the establishment of an oversight body of the government policy for fiscal and financial reconstruction. And that was called the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC. It was never legislated in the fiscal rules. It was not legislated in the PAAC oversight. It was not legislated in any of the omnibus tax legislation. It was a social consensus. And there is no more powerful tool for oversight than social consensus. And EPOC carried us through the economic reform program. It played a role in keeping the opposition then on side, keeping us informed, working with the Minister of Finance, making sure that what the government said it was going to do, it did. But the EPOC, which was comprised of Jamaicans of high integrity and public trust, reported periodically, regularly, to the country on the activities of this fiscal and financial reconstruction effort of the government.
Oh, let me just pause the Prime Minister there and tell you that the appreciation of wholeness is not where it ought to be. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is our best Prime Minister so far. Now, I was around under Manley. I never know Sharon or Samson. I was around under Siaga, Pattison, Kosher, Rose. Prime Minister Holness is our best Prime Minister of all.
Neighbor, please speak louder.
okay, the prime minister that we currently have, if you watch him in parliament, he is by far our best. Not only in terms of performance, but in terms of understanding statecraft, legislation, how government works, the interconnectedness of government. He's amazing. He's amazing. The Minister of Energy, Mr. Darrell Vaz, spoke in Parliament today. Here's what he had to say.
These are the facts. The existing license negotiated and implemented by the former minister allowed a significant portion of the electricity system losses to be passed directly onto the hardworking Jamaicans by moving the threshold that previously limited this exposure. Madam Speaker, this decision has increased ratepayers' burden collectively to over 30 billion Jamaican dollars per year, representing approximately 20% of total electricity costs. It also weakened the incentive and accountability of the JPS to effectively contain and reduce system losses.
All right, that's the minister says it will be the current Wholeness Administration which finally brings relief to the Jamaican people. Minister Vaz.
The same right of first refusal that he now calls to abolish was in fact introduced by him in 2015. This provision facilitated the non-competitive procurement of over 288 megawatts of thermal generation along with the floating LNG storage facility. The member is of the view that he can make a mess, leave it behind, and then blame this administration for the suffering it causes the people. I say to the Jamaican people, we know the architect of the current license, but we will get it fixed as committed. In the new license, when combined with rising global fuel prices, these decisions are among the primary drivers of today's elevated electricity costs. Madam Speaker, the implications of the right of first refusal and legacy of his leadership arrangements will persist for at least another 15 years, even after the license.
All right, so that's Minister Vaz suggesting that it is the People's National Party that is responsible for the high electricity bills that we currently have. All right, so there you have it in terms of clips from Parliament. I am now going to spend a little time to talk to you about a couple other things. Let's for example jump over to the notes and let me see what's on the pages of the notes. I know that my time is almost gone, but I have to speak to you a little bit about what's on my mind. What's on my mind? No, this is not a borrow from anyone else. It's the neighbor's notes. Now, reconstruction is not a policy. It's a moment. And Jamaica's history is littered with missed moments. The NARA debate is not just about infrastructure. It is a philosophical test. Can we unify around rebuilding, or will we let all politics rob us of a future we have waited 60 years? 60 years to pour the foundation for. Let me just build this out a little. Let me advance this argument a bit. And I will tell you why Jamaica must not miss this moment. We must not miss this moment. because historically, we have missed many moments. And it's like a ghost, the ghost of missed moments. In 1962, we got independence with optimism. Independence with optimism. Independence with capital. Independence with a head start on Singapore. That was a moment when the Union Jack came down at the National Stadium and the black, green, and gold was hoisted. All the pride and the joy on the faces of Jamaicans. That was a moment, and we missed it. We missed it because in the 1970s, democratic socialism promised equity, and it delivered exodus. Capital fled. Talent fled. That was a moment we missed it. In the 1990s, FinSAC, the financial sector collapse, gutted a generation of entrepreneurs. That was a moment to reform, to reset. We missed it. Each time we choose ideology over infrastructure. We chose division over development. We chose short sugar, the short sugar of politics over the hard bread of nation building. And Jamaica paid dearly. This Nara moment is important. This moment is the moment for modern Jamaica. All of you listening to me tonight, some of you were children in the 1990s. Some of you were not born under democratic socialism. You hear your parents talk about it, but you don't know it. You're alive today. I beg you, for God's sake, you are alive today. Take hold of your country. Take hold of this moment. Don't let them miss it. Don't let them rob you of the future that you should have had. Don't let them rob your children of the future that they need to have. Rise up, Jamaica. I heard somebody come here with nonsense about petition. Move on with that. Which petition? They really have a petition against Nara? Is that really true? This is the moment. The concrete is literally ready to be poured. Because reconstruction is not just roads and water and schools. It's philosophical. It's a philosophical statement. It is saying to Jamaica, we are done managing decay. We are now choosing to create. And to miss this moment is to tell our children, you inherit the same potholes we complained about. And that would be generational malpractice. Which brings me to the PNP's no vote. Why is it so disappointing? Because a no vote on reconstruction is not opposition. It is obstruction. You can't campaign that you love the poor while voting against the very infrastructure that lifts the poor up. You cannot say you represent the people, then vote no on the water they drink, the roads they drive, the schools their children attend. What is NARA about? A no vote here is not a check on power. It's a check on progress. And it ought to be rejected. And they have the unmitigated audacity to be coming up here to talk about petition against NARA. And Jamaicans are distracted with Hilangoli rhythm. We need to reject it, not with anger, but with clarity. Because Jamaica cannot afford leaders who are antithetical to our development. A nation is not built by concrete alone, it is built by consensus. By the radical idea that sometimes the other side has a point. But that rebuilding is not JLP, it's not PNP. Rebuilding is about JAMAICA. We have missed too many moments. We have buried too many hopes in the 70s. We have drowned too many dreams in the 90s. This moment of reconstruction is not about NARA. It's about the narrative. And what story will we tell in 2062? That we finally poured the foundation, or that we argued while the cement dried in the truck? The PNP's no vote on NARA is not dissent. It's denial. It's denial because it's the logical end of a 50-year political philosophy that close ideology over infrastructure. And Jamaica has paid the price in concrete, in capital, and in lost decades. And if we are honest, we do a comparison. Two nations, one timeline. Singapore independence 1965, Jamaica independence 1962. We started 3 years ahead. Look where they are and look where we are. That's not geography. That's governance. That's philosophy. In 60 years, over 60 years, where are we today? Two parties have run Jamaica. Only two. The Jamaica Labour Party has advanced this nation further than the PNP. The numbers don't lie, even when politicians do. The history of the PNP from the 1970s to the 1990s is not a mastery. It's a case study, a tale of mismanagement, of corruption, of destruction. And democratic socialism wasn't just an economic policy. It was the choice, the philosophical choice of that party, that the state knows better than the citizens, that control beats creation, that power beats production. And we paid in inflation, we paid IMF letters, we paid in garrisons, we paid in the decades it took to dig us out. So when the PNP cast a no vote, it's 8:30, I have to wrap. When the PNP cast a no vote on NARA, and no on reconstruction, it's not surprising, it's consistent. You cannot vote for reconstruction if your entire political legacy is deconstruction. You cannot support rebuilding if your philosophy never learned to build. I call it a naughty vote. They were being naughty. The naughty vote of the comrades wasn't about NARA, it was about history. It's about a party being asked to endorse the very thing their ideology made necessary. Because no is all they have left. And now they're challenging Jamaica to sign petition against the country's own development. Here's the truth. You cannot reconstruct a nation by pouring new concrete over old corruption. You have to evacuate first. You name the rot. You set the boundary. You say, this failed. These ideas have failed. These leaders have failed. The PNP's history has been a sorry one. A sorry one. And so the question is, how can a nation reconstruct itself if it won't vote out the thinking that broke it? It is the thinking that needs to be voted out. And until Jamaicans realize that those who broke it are in no position to fix it, then we may continue playing hopscotch. Vote them out. Because those who have that type of thinking cannot advance your country. And when no is all they have left, then no is all they'll vote. Choose Jamaica. Choose Jamaica and stand up for your country. And all those MPs who voted against you last week, voted against your bridge, voted against your road, voted against your clinic, voted against your hospital. Next time they come to you asking for your vote, vote no. Vote no. Because their thinking is not in line with the direction of the country. I'm going to open the lines so that we can have a conversation, so that we can talk. 26 minutes to 9 o'clock.
Hi, neighbor.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you, sir?
I'm not bad at all.
Okay. Well, you know, I really like your notes tonight. Very profound, neighbor.
Well, thank you.
Of course. I just want to let you know that, and our listeners know that I think there are a group of people who are planning to have a peaceful demonstration at where they're having the Senate meeting this Friday.
Uh-huh.
So everyone who are listening, who are able to make it, you should go out and wear your Jamaican colors and bring your placard that says, vote for NARA, pass NARA. Okay, and we have Joshua and Harry on the other side, neighbor.
They are on YouTube?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, want to thank them for joining us, and want to thank the listeners for joining us. So we missed many moments. We missed many moments in Jamaica, and I am sensing that this moment offers this generation the best opportunity to take a hold of their country. Stop thinking Labour. Stop thinking PNP. Jamaica is being held back by a group of people. And them are right, you know. Them are right. I don't know about you, but me know all right. Me know all right. And I have children, and I want them to grow up in a Jamaica that is better than this. This is our fight. This is our fight today. There's no greater subject on our country's agenda. There is no greater subject on our country's agenda than this moment. And if we miss this moment, then maybe we probably just let it go. But I sense that the people of Jamaica are seized of this moment and are prepared to fight for their country. And we're not talking about physical war. And I'll be first on the street if it takes that. And I think I am doing my part to get Jamaicans to understand that politics is at play here. Raw, dirty politics. Legislate all you want. Correct all you want. This country was devastated by a Category 5 hurricane. And it needs to be rebuilt. Are we going to miss this moment again, man? Fiddling while Rome burns? I don't think we are going to do it. Are we going to do it, Jamaica? Neighbor rights? Are we going to do it? Please remember to support the program here. Through our Zelle account, through our Cash App, and our live goals on screen. Send a rose, send a donut, send a lion, send a whale, send a money gun. What do you have to contribute to the Politics Plus network? Please, we appreciate that. Your gifts and your encouragement keeps us going. Let us turn over to YouTube and welcome our guests. Good evening to you, Harry.
Good evening, neighbor.
Good evening, man.
I'm not too bad, you know.
Yeah, Harry, the Nara case continues unabated. And I see where the PNP, they're all over social media. And I even hear that, that there's a petition that they're encouraging Jamaicans to sign to vote against the Nara bill. The Nara bill returns to the parliament on Friday. I'm disappointed that it never got pushed through Friday gone, Harry. What is the PNP's problem with this bill, Harry? What is happening?
Neighbor, it really is for them. It's about their own existence. If the magnitude of this bill is one in which, when done right, because it will pass, neighbor.
Okay, so we have Harry and we have
yes, neighbor. You hearing me?
Go ahead, yes, sir.
Right.
You're saying the bill will pass.
It will pass, neighbor. It by one way or the other, it will go through. It doesn't matter in terms of how much delay the opposition want to try and put to it, but it will pass, neighbor. Whether it goes to the standing committee, if they want to go to court, it will be passed. No, it is just about a matter of time. And I think that's a message I want the opposition to get from tonight, that they're delaying the inevitable. Reconstruction will happen with or without them. People's lives will be restored with or without them. Because we're in a state of Jamaica where Jamaica don't need the contribution in terms of the go ahead from the opposition to live their life and to build the lives they've dreamt of. It is a reason as to why September 3rd they got a resounding no. And this could also be a reason because they were rejected. They think they still have some level of power. I mean, from 14 to 28 in their eyes, it is strength. And I think they're mistaken, and I said it before, they're mistaking numbers for strength. That's not how it works, right? But they're delaying the inevitable. Time moves, the country will move on with or without them, neighbor. We aren't seeking their approval to achieve our goals anymore. What we dream and how we go about it is no longer tied to them.
Okay, but this has moved from the parliamentarian, Harry, to the parliamentarians, to the supporters of the People's National Party. And these are Jamaicans too. And some of these supporters are from the very area or areas where the reconstruction is needed more or most. Are you telling me that the people are so brainwashed that they can't see through this, Harry? Why is it that the parliamentarians have been able to get their supporters in line with their position of saying no to supporting Nara? The PNP supporters are all over social media. I think much of them are in our chat right now. I'm trying to get some attention. What is happening in Jamaica? Why our people can't see that this is a moment that we ought not to miss? What is happening?
Let me clarify one thing first, neighbor. You see those in the chats or the ones who were never affected? Let's not fool ourselves. They're the ones typing from the comfort of diaspora countries from the Kingston region that never get hit. They are perfectly fine. Probably not even one nail off a roof or out as a fence was removed for them. So they can talk all they want, right? We have yet to see anybody who has been significantly impacted at this stage speak out and speak up. We have yet to see also the opposition consulting the people who have been affected. We would have mistaken based on how the opposition is putting a performance there, but that they are the very ones who were impacted because they seem to be crying and putting on a show more than those persons who lost houses, lost homes, lost businesses. And it is not, and this is the hardcore truth, and they have to live with it or they want to believe it or not. These persons who we're seeing on these platforms, neighbor, are in the minority. And I'm challenging them because you're
saying that pay no attention to the media presence, the social media bloggers, those who are coming out. They are in the minority.
They are in the minority, neighbor, right?
Well,
because if and when we take to the streets and we ask, and I'm specifically targeting Westmoreland, you won't see this resounding thing that they're putting up as if they're unified to say no. Because I had a chit chat the other night on the weekend with a few of these people, and they can't speak about facts, but they run when the facts are being put out, when the truth is when they're confronted by the truth, right? And they have to regroup and come again with a different type of messaging. You don't try rebrand and restructure the truth. You say it as it is. And the truth of the matter is that the people who needs Nara the most, which we know is the entire Jamaica, but those from the 5 parishes that were critically and faced the major damage, they want this bill to go through. The problem is that a lot of these people, not just in terms of being brainwashed, but they're also afraid to be vocal. Jamaica has come a far way where we're able to do programs like this because before we couldn't, right? But you have a lot of people who they desire it, they want it. I've spoken to a few People's National Party person, and they're fine with the bill. They love the idea of it and what it will achieve.
Yes.
What they can't understand is why is it being fronted in terms of a negative thing by the very people which they support? And now they are questioning whether those persons are not just acting in the best interest of Jamaica, but whether they're acting in the best interest of those who voted for them. Because there's a difference. That is the truth, the hardcore truth the opposition faces now. And one of the major things as well, neighbor, is that we are going to see a lot more theatrics. We're going to see a lot more performances because that is all that is remaining of the opposition as it stands. There's no real substance. There's no true desire to get people out there. One of the case in point, for example, neighbor, is I hear Nikisha Burchell speaking of, persons who would have been affected and not considered, right? Or slow when it comes on to the roof program. As the member of parliament, if you wanted to help these persons, you wouldn't take up your phone and start a video. You would have gone around in your constituency, get the names of these persons that I'm going to say allegedly, because she can't prove it all no. So I'm going to say allegedly has not received any form of assistance as yet. Yes. That is how you represent the people. You don't take up your phone and everything on TikTok and social media. You think a TikTok and social media vote for you? You have the lives and the recovery process of these people in your hand, their responsibility. And the first thing you do is take up a phone to shoot a TikTok video. You need to go and get the names of these persons that were affected and take it to the relevant ministry. That is what is required. And if you can't do that, then it shows that you are also, by that very lack of action, against the people themselves, just like how you're against the bill. And a bill that is filled with a lot of oversight and a lot of different framework that has held the country and governments of the past and present to account. What more do they want? Is it that because they're not getting their own way? Because I see today, there was a mockery as well, even with the opposition neighbor, calling point of order that was not applicable, right?
Yes.
And as such, the speaker had to go ahead and read out the rules again. I think probably at this point in time.
Well, good evening, Jamaica. We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to.
I'm sorry about that. Harry, go ahead.
So, it seems as if we have to keep more classes for them to understand where they are and what is required of them, because they've been grossly mismanaged by some person we would want to say Master relative, but they've been grossly mismanaged by Margolin himself, who's not putting up any front of being a decent, much less one that have the capacity, the carrying capacity to be a leader. Right? It's like everybody do as they feel like, and he just sits back and take it because he can't get nobody chat in Jamaican terms. But the opposition themselves need to look within. And I think the people have to pressure them when it comes on to this. Not those who didn't vote, not the persons who voted for Jamaica Labour Party, but that 400,000 plus people that voted for them need to apply the pressure to say, listen, what is the benefit and the alternative to them saying no to this reconstruction?
Okay, I'm not seeing Joshua on YouTube. Moderator, tell me if he's there, because I'm not seeing. Harry, for the benefit of those persons who are still wondering what NARA is, would you take a minute or two and explain to us what is NARA about?
So NARA, forming from the abbreviation NARRA, neighbor, which is the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority Act. At this moment, it's not yet legislation. It is the framework mechanism that will facilitate the fast tracking of major projects in the recovery. It is not a permanent legislation, right? It is not a permanent framework, so it won't be one in which we will always have. It is only for emergency situations like what we faced with Melissa, right? Hence why in its very build, it is structured to be renewed every 5 years if decide upon being renewed because you don't have to. If you don't need it, you won't pull on it. Right? So it is a framework that will be fast tracking a lot of the reconstruction, the redevelopment when it comes out to infrastructure that entails communication lines such as road, waterways, housing will also be a part of it. And it groups development overall. Case in point, let me better explain what I mean by group. If the government is constructing a roadway going through, let's say from Westmoreland to Hanover, which would unlock lands and possibilities of NHT and developers, building houses, because that's also a concern that has been growing over time across several governments. What it does is that while the roadwork is being done and the submissions for major projects like housing, like businesses, right, centers and so on, those are separate. But what NARA does is while individually these projects would have required to submit for approval separately, what NARA does is it pulls it together to ensure that these other development can come together under NARA. Of course, once it's $1 billion or more being spent, because that's what NARA is going to do, those major developments. And it helps push those development projects that normally takes 3 to 5 years just to get approved. NARA narrows it down so those construction can be done and or begin within a year and then to go to completion. So it helps bring a holistic development framework. Nothing is done too much in isolation, hence why it is done in a centralized way. It has a CEO, right? And it helps group it in that manner. So we don't have to go through different frameworks. So you go from one ministry to another section, to another oversight, to another area. And by the time you're done, 4 years and nothing to do. It helps push it through to ensure that these critical projects, developmental projects that will not just give you infrastructure, but it gives you infrastructure that creates investment locally and internationally. It also helps free up capital base because 2.3 billion of the $6.7 billion will be going to private sector, and they can only access it through projects that are approved by Parliament as well. So that is an oversight that the opposition has been afraid to speak of. NARA will also be answering to Parliament, not just a CEO as they want to put it. So the public will see. In addition to it, NARA has an entity where before any development is done, there will be a national movement where ministries, different stakeholders will be going around doing their analysis, getting critical information to know what development projects or what projects may drive development in specific areas that are applicable, that will bring growth to dead communities, that will revive dead areas, that will open up new avenues. We spoke, held at length regarding what is Hanover known for and so on. It opens up opportunities for that. That is what NARA brings, and that is how it outlays everything for Jamaica. And these are projects that will, because it's borrowed money, right? There are a few grants and charities in there, yes, but the majority of it is borrowed. These projects have to be able to give back a return. In layman's term, pay for itself. So if you take $1, you're supposed to can pay back the dollar plus the interest. That is what NARA is built out to do, and do it at a faster pace. We have this money, or it will be given to us, depending on how we take it in tranches or stages, for 3 years. It is speeding up the development. And one of the key things I want people to know is that NARA is also freeing up the very government expenditure. The money that they have to drive capital investment and development that they have been unable to spend over several different administrations. So it's not unique to this administration being unable to spend its very own budget to drive growth. NARA will also unlock that for the government itself.
Okay, thank you so much, Harry. Stay right where you are there. Joshua, good night to you, sir. Hi.
Good night, sir.
Joshua, the matter of history, history will judge this moment, and I am looking at Jamaica 20 years from now, Joshua, and the matter of principled vote. The opposition is arguing that their vote against Nara is principled. I see Cliff Hughes suggesting that Golding is a good legislator and may have been seeking to guide certain changes in the bill. What is at the heart, Joshua, of the PNP's unanimous objection to the Nara bill? Do you think it is a principled stance, or do you think they are simply playing politics?
All right. So good night to you first. Good night to the moderators, and good night to all of the listeners, present and future. There is never anything principled coming from the PNP. The PNP has a track record, especially under Golding, of putting forward a position when it's convenient, and when it's inconvenient, then they go back against the same thing. Let us give you an example of one such. The Jamaica Teaching Council Bill, that was proposed by the PNP in the 90s. This government tried to implement it, and the purpose of the Teaching Council Bill is to hold teachers accountable,
Uh-huh.
to ensure that there are guidelines and measures, and if they are not performing, then action can be taken. The same PMP, as I said before, proposed the bill, put it forward, yet when it was dug up and put forward by this very administration, they opposed it. That's one such instance of being unprincipled. In addition to that, PNP under Mark Golding suggested that anyone in his party that is errant, or anyone that is, even their name is just mentioned regarding any form of corruption, they will have no place in his party. Yet when Dennis Gordon's name was mentioned, first of all, he said that he's unaware. Then secondly, he said, let the chips fall where they may. And these are two different occasions. And then after that, then he said, I have found Dennis Gordon has done nothing wrong, in a nutshell. You know, so again, it shows the unprincipled way that they operate. The PNP under Mark Golding has shown itself in every possible way to be errant.
Let me push you. Hold on there, Joshua. I add this to you. Is it possible for the country to reconstruct while the PNP is opposing? Is it possible to be done?
It is possible, just that it will be slowed. Let me tell you, there's a move right now starting from Portland. I will not call any name. I got a call today.
Yeah, no. You are hold up. You are saying, Joshua, that this reconstruction can take place without the support of the opposition.
It can take place. It's just that it will be delayed, severely hampered. And the reason I say that, because let me give you an example of what the PNP is trying to do right now to try and stall it, because they understand the importance.
Right now, they are doing it right now?
Right now, they're trying to stall it. I'm going to go back to Parliament on Tuesday. But in addition to that, I got a phone call today when I was told that there is a particular PNP political representative who is encouraging persons not to support NARA because, and he basically admitted that this will be a developmental bill and it will push Jamaica forward. How do you, as a politician, discourage persons from supporting NARA and encouraging their supporters to go out there and, in a nutshell, disparage NARA? Why? What is the benefit? In fact, I'm going to see if I can get the recording and send it to you. Right? Because I want you to play it so that persons can hear for themselves. Right? So the PNP understand the value of NARA. Right? Now, another move, as you had heard me mention, is that on Tuesday, in Parliament, it was a clear attempt to stall the passage of NARA. And why was it a clear attempt? I knew beforehand that they would have done anything to try and get a walkout of Parliament. And so what we saw of Angela Brown Burke, it was not by accident. It's not what we call a happenstance. It was deliberate, it was contrived, and it was intended to call Parliament to be aborted, right? The passage of the bill to be delayed, at least for that night, and to be pushed back until this Tuesday.
Yes, but I hate to distract you, Joshua. But put in context for me and the listeners, the importance of this moment for the country, and why it would be necessary or even encouraged for the opposition to be supporting this reconstruction.
All right. So repeat that for me. I'm sorry.
The
put in context. No, put in context. That's what. Right.
Right. The importance of this moment for Jamaica. I did the notes tonight, Joshua, on the opportunities that we have missed as a country. The independence, the 1970 exploit of democratic socialism, FinSAC in the 1990s, and here we are now in 2026. A pivotal moment in Jamaica's history because the country is struggling, Joshua. I hear today people talking about the price of patties and prices are on the up in Jamaica. No fault of what we are doing here, but quite frankly, we have had some setback. Would it not be ideal, even not ideal, but encourage for the opposition to be supporting the country's reconstruction, Josh?
It is important, sir. It's very critical, but you must understand that the PNP's objection to NARA is really not about what is best for Jamaica. The PNP's objection to NARA really is a fight for relevance. And let me repeat that. The PNP's objection to NARA is a fight for relevance. The PNP's objection to NARA is not about systems controls or even safeguards. Those are the smoke screens that have been put up front. Right? It's a possible loss of relevance to the success of NARA, and the PNP understand this. It's the NARA's implementation, and I will start there. It's really a deconstruction of a false narrative being propagated by the PNP, right? And what is that false narrative? Because the PNP understands the value of NARA, one, to nation building and the political capital that will be gained through same by this government. The PNP cannot afford for that to happen, right? And because when NARA succeeds, or let me put it this way, when the reconstruction succeeds, because whether it is under the name NARA or under something else, then the PNP's false narrative of the government not doing anything for the people and not looking after the needs of the people, generally speaking, will crumble. And so with that success, then the PNP will go into oblivion forever and ever. This is the final hurrah for the PNP. And so that is why you see them coming out with all of their tentacles. So that when I hear you say the people, it is not the people. These are PNP surrogates that are in objection. These are paid. Some of them, these are cells that are activated by some of them are cells that are activated. Right? And so the PNP is fighting tooth and nail. Now, why is NARA so important? Because NARA will help Jamaica to finally fulfill its unrealized potential as a nation. What do I mean by that? Jamaica is centrally located between the Atlantic and North America. Right? So Atlantic, North America, and the Caribbean, basically. We are one of the most critical hubs as it relates to trade and commerce generally. Right? And so with Jamaica being positioned the way where it is positioned. When all of these things are implemented, that slow growth that we have always had, not as a result of the lack of performance on the on the JLP, but rather the PNP rewriting the rules as it were to uh, economic rules. Sorry. Um, and so the PNP understood that for years they have always stood in the way of progress.
Yes.
Always. Not only have they stood in the way of progress in our parliament, but in terms of the way they manage the economy or the lack thereof.
Pause here, Joshua. The political calculus here, Joshua. The People's National Party is not a dumb political party. They must have calculated their political strategy here. How does it benefit them? How can you see this as a political strategy benefiting the opposition in any future election? How?
All right. So what the PNP is really doing is hedging their bet. What do I mean by that? They're really making a gamble to say, though it is a risky one, maybe we can win. Let me go into that further.
But how?
Right. That is why I said let me go into it further, because it is dangerous to oppose the bill, because if people see through the reason they're opposing it, and the bill succeeds, then the reconstruction begins, then the country succeeds, and people will realize that the PNP is anti-patriotism and anti-Jamaica. But if they succeed, the PNP that is, and the bill is stalled, and the reconstruction is stalled, and then we don't achieve that which we wanted to achieve. So the PNP wouldn't mind the bill to come on stream, but they want it to be stalled as long as possible, right? Perhaps until the final year, because we have a 3-year take-up before we can take up the money and begin to get the work done. So if they can stall it for another 2 years and Nares push through in the 3rd year, by the time we begin to gather everything and to get going, it will be the final year, and they'll get an opportunity to have that aha moment. See, I told you.
Let me play. I don't like this term, but what devil's advocate? Let me give the PNP the benefit of the doubt here. Is it possible, Joshua, that the PNP really are trying to point out something to us that is relevant to the bill? Is it? Do they really have a case that we should examine?
Sir, there are 2 reasons that I'll propose to you why I know. Notice I never said I think. I know that position is not true. And it's not that you are a person who is untruthful. It is rather because of the nature of the beast that is called the PNP. The Pirates National Party.
You said pirates?
Pirates National Party.
They are pirates?
Right. That's what PNP stands for. The Pirates National Party. Right?
Why do you call them pirates?
PNP is more concerned about money for themselves and for their surrogates and the development of Jamaica. We can test that because just before the advent of Melissa, they were talking about money. The first press conference that they had after Melissa was about money. The second one was about money. The third one was about money. They set up a GoFundMe.
Pirates Party.
That they claim was for the people. And they want all of Jamaica to believe that they only collected $3.9 million. Now, I did a quick calculation, and 2,000 persons contributing $33 from the US, $33 would give us 10 million Jamaican dollars. That's only 2,000 persons. You want to tell me that the PNP could not get 2,000 persons to contribute about $18 Jamaican each? That's all that 2,000 persons would have. No, $18 US. You're saying it's only 2,000 persons contributing $18 US. That gave to the PNP's coffers. The piece of land that I have on Mars is yours if you believe that, sir. Right? And so what we find ourselves in, it's not the PNP being concerned.
How do you explain Cliff Hughes suggesting that Golding is a very good legislator and probably was doing the country a favor by some of the points he raised there on Tuesday?
All right. Do not underestimate the nature of the PNP. And that's where I'll begin. Right? And I really want to delve into the previous question.
Yes.
That you asked. The PNP is a very sly old fox. If you can recall, right? If you can recall, recently I indicated to you and to the listeners that we must never count out the PNP, and we must always give the PNP a chance, not because we want to, but because of the PNP's propaganda mechanism that they have in place and the misinformation mechanism. The PNP also uses their surrogate to get into the ears of people that they themselves wouldn't have otherwise been able to reach. And then they can be very convincing. PNP will sell you your own shirt that you had for 5 years and told you that it just came from a factory, and you'll believe.
Is what you're saying to me?
Yes. They will sell you your own. They will sell you your own shirt that you had under the closet for 5 years, and they'll tell you that it just came from a factory.
What are you saying to me?
And you will believe, because that's how convincing PNP can be. And so the PNP do not use only one method, one mechanism of convincing people. Apart from the clear misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda which they pursue, and outright lies. One of the things that the PNP does very well, as we are well aware of, is to have surrogates in every agencies and ministries. In addition to that, one of the things that PNP did very well in the 90s is that whenever they have something to push forward, they activate certain persons who are tasked with the responsibility of calling the radio stations.
Yes?
Yes, they do that. They did that. And they still do it today. It's just that they may not do it as much as in the past, but their responsibilities, sole responsibilities to call the radio station. John Pollock is one of them, right? And carry the PNP's narrative, right? But they would have been given the talking points that they want them to raise. There are persons overseas. I have spoken to persons who are close to the politics, right? And when I said close, I mean a little bit too close. Inside the PNP, I'm talking. Who tell us that in the 90s, they used to, I don't know if it happened in the 70s, but in the 90s, they used to get visas for people, send them overseas as part of the diaspora, yes, as part of the diaspora, to infiltrate the diaspora movement and to carry the PNP's narrative.
What you say to me?
Yes. This is what they have done, and I have no doubt that they are still doing. So people like Cliff Hughes, with a concern for Jamaica, if the argument is presented plausibly to him, we'll stop and look, because Cliff Hughes is not a tribal person. Cliff Hughes, I believe, has the best interest of Jamaica, and he's more interested in what is best for Jamaica. And even if the argument, even if what is being presented is not true, if it sounds plausible enough, we'll stop and have a look at it, and we'll accede to what is being put forward, because it's plausible.
Golding is a good legislator?
I think he understands law. A good legislator does things for the benefit of those whom he represents. Right? So there's a difference between understanding law and being a good legislator. When you can use law for the benefit of all concerned, then I will agree that you're a good legislator. But when you abuse your power as a legislator, then you're no longer good in my eyesight.
Wow, boy. Hold on there, Joshua. Don't move at all. That is fantastic. Good night to you, Scratchy.
Blessed night, neighbor. Going on social media, different platforms. Blessed night, Caroline, Harry.
Scratchy. It would be good for Jamaica if we were united at this time. But Scratchy, the divisions in Jamaica seem to be widening. The political divisions. As a matter of fact, Scratchy, I have never seen it this bad at a time when Jamaica ought to be united. The lines are drawn, Scratchy. How does that make you feel first as a Jamaican?
Good night again, neighbor. I'm definitely, neighbor, not something, neighbor, that we want to see at this time, neighbor, because all of us who are wise and who can see, neighbor, we definitely see that the country definitely needs this right at this moment, you know, based on disaster that we recently coming out of. But the rebuttal to this, neighbor, is not just based on the fact, neighbor, about Jamaica's development and what an impact that it will have on the People's National Party, neighbor, going forward, neighbor, in terms of their future. This bill, neighbor, is seen, neighbor, not just as the Jamaica Labour Party, neighbor, but a lot, neighbor, as a game changer in terms of our infrastructure development, neighbor. And since Mark Jefferson Golden has become the leader of the People's National Party, neighbor, Mark Golden, neighbor, has brought back, neighbor, a type of divisional politics, neighbor, where it is coming from an elitist level. Not just a PNP and Labour right division, neighbor, but a more elitism type of division here throughout to the politics, neighbor. But our current Prime Minister, neighbor, based on society and description, neighbor, would definitely not fit in that category, neighbor, being an elitist, neighbor. If you look at the persons, neighbor, even in higher society across the length and breadth of Jamaica, who is against the Prime Minister, neighbor, enough of them fit into that level of elitism across the country. Enough of them, neighbor, if they don't fit in it, neighbor, they are key followers or proxies, neighbor, to elitists in the country. So there's a level of elitism going on in Jamaica, neighbor, and it has brought to fruition by Mark Golden. No, look, come back to Nara now and let's see the whole context. Nara, neighbor, is something that I believe, neighbor, the whole idea was conceptualized by the Prime Minister, neighbor. The PNP themselves, neighbor, knows, neighbor, that if Nara should reach all right aim, if Nara should reach its aim, its mission, and its objective, neighbor, it is going to erase, neighbor, every single history across the length and breadth of Jamaica in regards to the PNP, neighbor. It will take away the PNP boasting points, neighbor. They tend to, neighbor, to glorify Manley as the Prime Minister of House, as if Manley is the one who the Prime Minister will have a build house. Nara will definitely put that aside, that legacy aside, and come for that legacy from Mr. Manley. When you look at Mr. PJ Patterson now, neighbor, PJ Patterson is touted, neighbor, the person who built out Jamaica public sector, you know? When you look at Nara, neighbor, being the game changer and legislation, neighbor, the different type of legislation of the Jamaica Labour Party has brought forward from 2016 till now, neighbor, it will that has helped the private sector, neighbor. Case in point, neighbor, the biggest thing, neighbor, the private sector reform.
Yes.
We definitely wipe out PJ Patterson, neighbor. Portia seems similar now, neighbor. Tout herself, neighbor, to being the Prime Minister that cares and more compassionate about the poor. Yes, she might care more for the poor, neighbor, but no other Prime Minister in Jamaica, neighbor, has lifted more Jamaicans out of poverty, or below the poverty line, or in the poor line, neighbor, as that Jamaica alone is up. So, don't want to be an impactful bill like that, neighbor, attached to the name or the conceptualization or the credit being given to Andrew Money. So, look at now, neighbor, and who pilot the bill.
Yes.
The bill was pilot, neighbor, by a young minister, neighbor.
Yes, Nestor Morgan.
Nestor Morgan.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
And young man, neighbor, I can tell you, neighbor, that the elitists in our society, neighbor, not pleased, neighbor. I wouldn't want to see.
And it appears as if Morgan will play a major role in the execution of this bill as the minister without portfolio in the Prime Minister's office.
I think Morgan is a dark horse that we have not given any credit in regards to this thing, neighbor. The mere fact, neighbor, that Morgan is a minister, neighbor, a young minister, neighbor.
Black man.
As a minister who have a lot on this belt. A young, very young neighbor, just coming to Parliament, maybe second term or so. But when I look at a Morgan neighbor piloting this bill, neighbor, the elitists in Jamaica, neighbor, don't want to see Morgan name fixed to that bill, neighbor, as a pilot, because, neighbor, if Nara should meet its objective, neighbor,
my God,
Nestor Morgan name, neighbor, will be etched, neighbor, in the whatever history Jamaica.
Is what you're saying to me, sir?
In terms of the infrastructure and the development of Jamaica, neighbor.
It's so deep, you look at it, Scratchy.
Neighbor, the elite is across the length and Jamaica. They have a problem with Nara, neighbor. They have a problem with who is orchestrating Nara, who is piloting Nara, neighbor. That is where the rebuttal. Look at the people
my God.
fighting against Nara. I did, neighbor, who don't look, a lot of them look like Mark Golden. A lot of them share the ethnic group of Mark Golden. And if they don't share it, neighbor, their followers who carry that same ethnic group. Neighbor, this bill is so deep, neighbor. I'm telling you, Nara, neighbor, is a bill, neighbor.
Hold on, Mr. Scratchy. Hold on, sir. Hold on. You are saying to me that we have, because I have missed that. I did note that Nestor Morgan is piloting the bill. That Nestor was consulting with the drafters. Nestor Morgan is the minister without portfolio in charge of roads. So the reconstruction will fall partly at his decks. He's almost like the second man to the prime minister where this bill is concerned.
Second man to the prime
And you are saying to me that may be part of the problem.
That is a major part of the problem, neighbor. Major part of the problem. Neighbor, if Naira should reach its full aim and potential, neighbor, Nestor Morgan, neighbor, is going to go down in the history, neighbor, as the one who pilot that bill. Here, neighbor, look at young politician, neighbor. Just look at how neighbor, I don't talk about the prime minister, we're not taking from the prime minister. But neighbor, just look at how Nestor Morgan, neighbor, in the parliament when the bill was being debated, neighbor. Oh, we read out the clauses, neighbor. You can know that this was not something that this man was talking about, seeing for the first time. You could know, neighbor, that when you hear Nestor Morgan talk about Naira, neighbor, you could know, I don't know this for a fact, but you could tell that he was a part of the creation of this bill, neighbor. He was in the room with the drafters, neighbor. Neighbor, Nestor Morgan understand this bill inside out, neighbor. Even if it was given to him, neighbor, he did a wonderful job in studying it, neighbor. And I know, as a cabinet minister, I believe he has that power and he has that authority to be a part of the drafting, neighbor. And I would have surprised, neighbor, if he played in a deeper role in this bill, neighbor, in crafting even some of the class and stuff like that. Because based on what I'm seeing, neighbor, and the trust and the belief that the Prime Minister put in Nestor Morgan to pilot this bill, neighbor, he tell the neighbor that Nestor Morgan, neighbor, is someone that we should look at differently going forward. If Naira should reach its objective, neighbor, Nestor Morgan name will be edged across, will be called across Jamaica, neighbor, for the rest of Jamaica, neighbor, in regard to the changes in our society, the change in our living condition, neighbor, and the recrafting and the shaping of Jamaica from an infrastructure level. Watch that bill, neighbor. Nestor and the Prime Minister, neighbor, a lot of elitists, neighbor, don't want that history, neighbor, to be attached to the both of them.
I have something else to ask. I'm a little concerned, Scratchy, that the bill, the passing, the reconstruction will be marred in politics. Scratchy, that's unfortunate, is it not?
Neighbor, definitely, neighbor, based on the rhetoric coming from the opposition, neighbor, you can see that they are trying to put that, neighbor. But neighbor, it takes two to tango, neighbor. And if you look from the government benches, if you look from the government side, neighbor, the Prime Minister, neighbor, or other government minister, neighbor, as crafted whatever statement they have made, neighbor, in a way, neighbor, to try to keep away the politics, neighbor, from it as best as possible. Because as I said before, neighbor, PNP can do what they want to do, neighbor, but the Prime Minister is not going to engage, neighbor, in that tit for tat. The Prime Minister knows, and the Jamaica Labour Party members know, neighbor, the government members know how important this bill is, neighbor, and they know what the PNP is trying. The PNP is trying to beat them, neighbor, into say something and try to craft it away, neighbor, as if this bill it's all about politics, neighbor. So the Prime Minister, neighbor, this man, neighbor, I know how to not get the drag in the mud, neighbor, like the PNP, neighbor. And I think, neighbor, we will definitely go through, neighbor, with this one, neighbor, because it takes two to tango, as I said before, neighbor. And the Prime Minister is so skilled, neighbor, whenever he stand up and speak, neighbor. And he's not going to get pushed into that, neighbor, because he knows how important this bill is, neighbor. But opposition, neighbor, Mark Jefferson Golden, is trying to push that narrative, neighbor, against his supporters, neighbor. But, neighbor, I can say, neighbor, that one thing I know Jamaicans will do, I know I'm not even Jamaicans, neighbor, as a human being. I know, neighbor, it is hard to accept change. But sometimes it's a type of change, neighbor. Any change that has to do with the improvement of your living condition, neighbor. Any changes that have to do with, neighbor, the advancement of your country, neighbor. I honestly know how you can reject those changes, neighbor. So I expect, neighbor, majority of Jamaicans, neighbor, to follow suit and support this bill, neighbor. This is one of the reasons why, neighbor, even when the contention was going on with this bill, neighbor, I tell you before, neighbor, where the parliament sits, neighbor, is right in the heart of Desmond Mackenzie constituency. Right near the parliament is a Jamaica Labour Party supporting lane, neighbor. And around the inner city, neighbor. It was very easy. It was a rocket science or anything hard, neighbor, for Tuesday when that bill was debated, neighbor, to to run the parliament neighbor with a 1,000 or 2,000 Jamaica Labour Party supporters down there. The Prime Minister himself neighbor didn't want that neighbor because as a governing party that would don't want to be joining the tit for tat neighbor with the opposition and trying to create a narrative as if this meeting neighbor is a politics thing, this is a governance thing. And the supporters of the Jamaica Labour Party never needed a warranted on that here.
Well, thank you, guys. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you, Jamaica Princess. Thank you for all the roses. Thank you for all the gifts you are sending to the program. That's brilliant coming from you, Scratchy. 26 minutes after 9 o'clock. Please remember to support the Politics Plus network with your gifts and with your contributions. The program requires your support. God Riches on me, and then Chops Media. Good night, God Riches. 1, 2, 3. God Riches. Riches? Not there. Okay. Chops Media. Good night, sir.
Blessings. I greet you well.
Good evening, Chops.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I saw you commenting that you are agreeing with Scratchy that not everything that is meeting the eye is being seen in this struggle. And you're a man steep in the politics. Do you think that there is something here that we are not seeing that is speaking to the underbelly of classism and elitism in the society? It's always been there, but are we seeing it on display here?
Well, yes, it is on display, and the leader of the opposition would have, on many occasions, positioned himself as an elitist, not participating in some of the things that are unique to Jamaica's culture is one. Utterances that pronouncement that he would have made during the political campaign about Tappanaris and, and all that good stuff. And just his whole demeanor when it comes to the affairs of the country. You can see where he positioned himself sometimes as somebody who he believes is more knowledgeable, of Jamaica, the laws, and being a legislator. A comment was made, I think, by the illustrious Cliff Hughes about him being
a good legislator.
A good legislator. And I am not a legal mind, but if you were to, and I'm using Cliff's position on the issue because this is not the first time that I want to not necessarily disagree, but have a separate opinion from him as it relates to an argument. I remember some time ago he may have mentioned that Peter Phillips should be credited for Jamaica's economic recovery. And I disagreed with him at the time because my question to him was, if somebody were just
breaking up there,
and a bucket of water and come back and put out the fire, would you credit them for putting out the fire, or would you credit them for starting the fire? And I think that question still is unanswered by Cliff Hughes. And that was to look at the comment he made about Peter Phillips. Now, fast forward to now, likened Mark Golding to a great legislator. This is in respect to the NARA bill. The question I'd love to ask Cliff is, at what section of that bill did he made any contribution that was significant to the extent that that credit can be given to him, right? In respect of NARA, what contribution, what amendments did he propose that was significant in making the necessary changes or providing any safeguard or any extra guardrails to the bill that deserve that comment? So I'd love to ask Cliff that question. Scratchy mentioned earlier about the elitism and Nestor's contribution. And I second that as it relates to Nestor Morgan, having known this and his contribution to the party and to Jamaica overall. He is well deserving of his position. And I know Scotty referred to him as a young parliamentarian. Yes, he's probably new to the parliament itself, but as it relates to the political landscape, he is quite a stalwart as it relates to Andrew Holness becoming Prime Minister. He played a very integral role in that. And I was very, very pleased to see him sitting at the right hand or the left hand of the PM on this special occasion and piloting a very significant bill. And as Scotty said earlier, folks, his name will be etched in the history, the archives of Jamaica, on a very significant legislation.
Okay, let's advance this argument. The politics of Nara, how is it playing right now, chops in the Jamaica Labour Party, and of course within the People's National Party, and by extension on the ground? What are you hearing?
I'm not. The truth is, on the ground itself, I'm not picking up politics on the ground as it relates to Nara. What I'm picking up is people craving to understand
what it is about.
Nara will affect their lives. Yeah, and people are hearing this acronym. People are hearing the conversation, but the average Jamaican want to have a better and a clearer understanding as to how Nara will affect their lives and livelihood. I think that's the biggest argument you're getting out in the nooks and crannies of Jamaica. In terms of the politics of it, neighbor, I think what transpired in Parliament a few days ago, which actually spilled over into today, because that's a posture of the PNP. They're in a disruptive, militant mood, and they're expecting to draw along the JLP with them. And I'm happy that the JLP is, standing their ground and maintaining a high level of decorum, especially in the Parliament. But the politics of it, neighbor, would have met an untimely death last week.
You think it died?
Yes, I think it has died, and I'll tell you why. Think about this for a moment. There was a couple of instances where the opposition rose and made a suggestion, in terms of changes or amendments to the bill. Those suggestions were accepted, promptly, on point, on the spot. And the recommendation for that particular change to be made was done, accepted. And when time come for them to vote on that specific amendment, they did not vote. So just explain that to me. And that's one of the things I'd love for the opposition to explain. If you are debating a bill and you have an issue with a particular clause and you make a suggestion and the suggestion is accepted, then why, when it was accepted and put back to you for a vote, you did not vote on it? Is it that you have a different objective from that which is to pass the bill or to agree with any section of it, or you came there just with one agenda, and that is to disagree?
Yeah, because the Sunday before, sir, Mr. Isaac Buchanan in an interview said they're going to vote nay. They will vote nay.
So that means you came with a preconceived notion, and these are some of the things that I have a problem with, neighbor. That's what I'm saying to you, that the politics of it has meant an untimely death, because I think people are seeing through the politics.
Yeah, but the PNP would have been successful though to have created some doubts in the minds of some Jamaicans that somehow the government is using this bill and is not acting in their interest. That's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, neighbor, and one of the reasons why the PNP, excuse me, is taking that position is because they are still wedded to a particular dogma. They are very dogmatic kind of people, and they are still living in a period that they govern. They have not seen, remember now, neighbor, the PNP has never presided over a great economy. They've never built a good economy. They've never run a good economy. Well, yeah, they receive a good economy, but they've never run a good economy. So what is happening now throughout Jamaica is foreign to the People's National Party. If they were to assume governance today, they would be like a fish out of water because they have never seen an economy with the sort of structure that we have now. And if you go back in history, history will tell you that every time they receive an economy with anything remotely close to what we have now, they would have made a mess of it. So I think they're still living in a period, neighbor. That is one of the reasons why they are so hell-bent on bringing back some of the things that we are moving away from. Because they were the ones who legislate Jamaica into this bureaucracy that is stagnant and has held us back. Because they operated in a time when the politics of Jamaica and the governance was inherently corrupt. I don't think they can now fathom or even grasp it in their mind to accept that Jamaica is not as corrupt as it used to be during the 18-and-a-half-year ruling of the People's National Party.
I think that's
a struggle that they have.
I think that's a great point. But I have to leave it there, Brother Scratch. Running out of time. You here? Take care.
No problem. Take it easy.
Okay, fantastic. Let's jump back up to Harry. Go to Joshua, and then we come out and close off with Scratch. We go until 10 o'clock. Harry?
Yes, neighbor.
Where do we go from here, Harry? 23 minutes to 10 o'clock. Where do we go from here? Political activism on the ground. Much discussions in Jamaica. Some people still need to be educated about this NARA bill. I am sure the government is going to be coming forth on Friday with strong arguments. The bill should pass. From there, where do we go from here?
Well, neighbor, to be honest, nothing changes in terms of the intent and the end result that we were looking for directly after Melissa when NARA was announced, right? The conceptualization of it. So that in its entirety doesn't change. I think where we do move to is the continuous education of the people
What aspect of the bill or the process here do you think that we should be focused on, even here at the Politics Plus Network?
Well, two major areas, neighbor, and this is the areas that the opposition is misleading the people of Jamaica. Their so-called strong point, which is accountability and transparency, right? And of course, the credibility of the Prime Minister. I've seen in both chat, people just regurgitating what is being spread by the opposition. And I extend a lot of grace because being ignorant of a process is nothing wrong. But being arrogant and forthcoming, knowing that you are incorrect and you don't have enough information is the issue for me. And I say that to say this.
Yes.
Majority of Jamaicans do not know institutions. They do not know the frameworks. They don't know the sectors and the overarching machineries that have been put in government to ensure that governance is the way it ought to be in Jamaica.
Is it the low trust? Is it the low trust factor? And if that is so, then that can be corrected with education.
Well, so trust is earned, neighbor, right? So it's something you have to build into. But people cannot trust you if they themselves don't know what is out there. And as you educate them more about it, what you do is you take down this firewall that they have up, right? This preconceived notion that, money will be going to the prime minister and all of that. You and Diane and persons here know that that is not the case because we understand it. But the sensationalism and the ease at which people have been cultured to say politicians are corrupt, that is the same sensationalism that the opposition is pointing the finger at the current administration. And they know that they can appeal to the emotions because they themselves have taught Jamaicans one way or the other that political representatives can be corrupt. We've seen the scandals regular from the 90s coming up with the People's National Party. So people know of that. And as such, they're going to generalize, everything, despite the neighbor also having evidence, maybe to them not substantial evidence of the current administration not being corrupt. So playing on the accountability, if people can understand what are the guardrails that prevent corruption, what framework that push integrity of a government, then they can now understand and see to the farce that the opposition has been putting up for quite a while regarding this bill. So they have to be educated regarding it to know, so they can also question it for themselves rather than regurgitate the information. And I know in which one of the things for now is that the government will, having agencies and so on going around and taking into account let the people know what is happening. The people also help determine what type of projects will be going to what areas, and that will help in that manner. But I do understand that majority of Jamaicans do not understand how a government works and what are the requisite criteria and institutions that ensure that there's fairness, that there's equity, accountability, credibility, and integrity right throughout. So that is the next step we will take. But as it relates to the bill becoming legislation, I don't see how it's going to be stopped. Like I said, you may have a little delay, but they can do so much and no more. But I do expect it to come on board. And then people will see the results. I think the major thing is when results are coming up, because NARA is results driven. I know the opposition saying it's all about speed. It is speed that brings results. So it's not one or the other. It's both working in tandem to achieve the goal for the people. And as such, when people start to see the end results, I think they'll buy into it. It is no different from when we were going through COVID.
Yes.
It was a panic. People didn't know. The world never really know what to do about this pandemic. But what? After seeing the results and hearing the rest of the world bigging up Jamaica and saying, oh, we were forthcoming and how we handled it, people trusted the government, right? More so than they would have any other government before. I've heard of breakouts when I was a younger neighbor, and it was craziness. People didn't know what to do. Government had no idea. But we saw where this administration has earned the right to brag about how they handle when it comes on to disaster management. And as such, when the results from this neighbor, because it's the first time we're facing a category 5, which is really a 6, and people don't want to say, you've been tested in one way, let's see how being tested now, what will you deliver? And as such, they have started that process with the ROOFs program and so on. So people are slowly seeing tangible evidence, and that is how you get people to buy into the process going forward, while of course simultaneously handling the misinformation and disinformation from the opposition.
Fantastic. Joshua, do you think the government is winning the NARA debate?
I would say it's a 60-40, and I know my colleagues may disagree with me on this. It's a 60-40 in favor of the government. And the reason I want to take that position, because I'm a man who likes to keep my ears on the ground. I don't just stay one side and look on, and I don't just stay in labor rights live or political talk space. I try to get information directly from off the ground that has nothing directly to do with politics, though it is political in nature.
Yes.
And take, for instance, I got a WhatsApp this morning all the way from Jamaica. I actually woke up to it. You know, people bad mouthing Nara, and this person claimed not to be politically aligned. Now I know differently because every time that there's a political argument that comes out, anything that puts the Jamaica Labour Party in a bad light, I can always expect to receive some form of text from a group of persons from Jamaica. And so this thing is far more political than we imagine. You know. You quoted one politician in the form of Isaac Buchanan who said that they will win, right? The aim is really to stall Nara, and having stalled it, when it is passed, to take it to court to stall it a little longer, and to get the ears of a friendly judge. And having gotten the ears of a friendly judge, hopefully, if they're not able to get the judge to at least strike on some part of it, which I don't see how they will be able to, at least to send it back to say, okay, here are the adjustments that need to be made, and these are some of the areas, and to stall it a little bit longer to get it to that final year so that the development is stalled. And then the PNP, as I said, will have their haha moment where they'll be able to point a finger to say, hey, we told you that they couldn't get it done, despite all of these things, you know, that have been put in place, and the conceptualization and the implementation of NARA. See, they don't care about you. One of the messages I got is...
Sorry, Joshua, do you agree that the people of Jamaica are lacking in information about this bill? You agree?
The people of Jamaica is largely ignorant, and for the simple reason that it was a deliberate ploy by the People's National Party to take civics out of school in the first place. And you may ask, what has civics got to do with NARA? Because when people don't understand how government work, as Harry alluded to, then they will accept anything they hear that sounds plausible. You know, because we hear a lot of garbage on the road. Take for instance, I was on a live along with, you know, one of our erstwhile commentators on this panel, and one of the things that was being pushed on the live was that the lack of safeguard that they tried to put forward, and that the government was dishonest, the prime minister was dishonest, you know, and so it's in a bid to slow down the process, right? And a lot of other misinformation was there. Having gone back and forth, we found out that this person worked at the Integrity Commission.
Oh.
And for me, that is very critical, because I believe that the surrogates are now being sent out for the sole purpose, right, within the Integrity Commission, for the sole purpose of trying to cast aspersions on the Prime Minister's integrity, to again delay the implementation of NARA, right? To add fuel to the fire in terms of why the opposition is taking the stance that they are taking, right? The opposition know that they really don't have a case in it, but they don't need to have a case, believe it or not. And I think with this debate on NARA, it really is a test of sensibilities versus national patriotism. You know, the persons who are here listening and in the political space, whether you are political or not, you need to ask yourself, what is best for the nation, right? Am I going to be putting my politics above patriotism, or is my patriotism far more beneficial to the nation than my politics? And I fear, neighbor, believe it or not, I fear that we have not gotten to that place where our patriotism trumps our politics, right? I made mention of something earlier about the Pirates National Party. NARA demonstrates and exposes the PNP's cruel attempt to keep Jamaica in low growth mode, you know, while their own people, right? And I will go slowly again so that people can get it. NARA demonstrates or exposes the PNP's cruel attempt to keep Jamaica in low growth mode, while their own surrogates, their people, and their politicians' pockets are lined with more cash.
Oh. My God.
Right? That is what NARA is bringing to the fore. And why do I say this? Because again, I pointed to the fact that when the hurricane came, this was never about concern about the people, right? Even now, while the container homes are coming in, the PNP does not see it fit to educate the persons that hey, the homes are here to give them hope. One of the messages that I got from Jamaica this morning was to show me with a tarpaulin, to send me a video to show me a tarpaulin claiming that somebody lived under that tarpaulin and they are suffering. And a gentleman was walking with two scandal bags, supposedly to help the person. But when he reached that, having walked a little while, when he reached that spot, he met a supposed stranger, you know, and he was able to demand from the stranger, give me a bike, come here, go up there to go help somebody. Right? Now, that in and of itself should tell you that this is a setup. And they were able to show us the tarpaulin, but they weren't able to show us anyone living under the tarpaulin. And it shows you the strategy that the PNP is using to try and emerge as the savior without actually doing anything. The savior of the people. And I think we need to expose really the responsibilities of our elected representative. Because what the PNP has been managed to do, have managed to do, is to turn the narrative on the government. Not totally. I think there is still a lot of time for us to push back at it. But to turn the narrative on the government to say it is the government's responsibility, the elected prime minister responsibility to go into these communities that they, the PNP, have been elected to serve, you know, to help out the people, while they themselves don't do a thing. And it is not so, people. For those of you who don't know, you elect your elected representative to serve you, not to be there to point finger at the government. They're a part of the governance structure, and the reason you cast your vote for them is not for them to quarrel with the leading party. You cast your vote for them because you expect that the money that they have received from central government is intended for your benefit. Yeah. Not for them to dress up in suits and go in parliament and go and quarrel with the elected government. Right? Another thing that NARA exposes, it exposes the cruelties and evil desires versus what is best for Jamaica. Because the PNP is willing to burn down the house, to rule over the ashes, just to say that they are in power. And it's not just the party itself which is guilty. They're surrogates who have families who are going to suffer should this economy crash. Right? Don't care one hoot right now about the development of Jamaica. What they care about is their party getting back in power. And that is why they're fighting so hard. So with this, it exposes that cruelty and the evil desires versus what is best for Jamaica. It also called into question our responsibility versus political loyalty. We have to begin to ask ourselves, what is our responsibility versus our political loyalty? Because we can be loyal to our party, but is that the best thing for Jamaica? And not just the people on the ground, but you need to ask the same thing of your political representative on the PNP side. What is their responsibility versus their political loyalty? Are they more loyal to their party's cause and their party's aim versus their responsibility to the people? Yes, it will, to a certain degree, almost make them obsolete. But there's a way out for them. Because if they jump on board and align themselves to what is good for Jamaica in terms of helping to push forward NARA, history will record it that the PNP never opposed that which is good for Jamaica, but rather align themselves to what is best for Jamaica. And another thing that comes here is, as it relates to this NARA bill, it is putting empathy on trial. Because how empathetic are the People's National Party MPs or members towards the plight of the people? Are they so callous and morbid that their very survival is more important to them, or their political reign is more important to them than the benefit that will be accrued from Naira to the people? These are some of the questions that PNP need to ask themselves, both the elected representative as well as their surrogates. And so I call upon the people tonight to put PNP on trial and ask them some of these questions. And I repeat what some of them is. Right? What is your political responsibility? Is your political loyalty greater than your responsibility? Do you put it ahead of your responsibility? Are you more interested in what you are to gain out of politics than the benefit to the people of Jamaica? Because what PNP fail to understand under Mark Golding, under this leadership, is that if they align themselves with this bill, as I said before, people look on, history will record it to say that PNP was responsible in their support of it. And I think they know this. Because that is why they sing an empty tune, right? Or sing a hymn from a blank sheet of paper to say that we support Naira.
Gonna have to leave it there, Joshua.
Right, but the evidence doesn't support them. Thank you, sir. You are welcome. And so I want to tell your audience good night. You know, and continue to fight for this bill. Do not curse out anybody. But your job is to get the ears of your co-worker, your family, your neighbors, and let them understand. No pun intended when I use the word neighbor. But to get their ears and to show them the benefit of this and let them understand that there are safeguards and mechanisms in place to protect their money. And finally, last but not least, this government cannot afford for any scandal to be attached to their names. And as a result of that, they would never put themselves in a position for scandal to come from Naira. And so trust them, you have trusted them this far, and continue to trust them as we march forward towards a greater Jamaica.
Very well said, Joshua John. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah. So Scratchy.
Yes, Nero.
Scratchy, as we shoot for the runway, bringing this plane down on the tarmac for this Tuesday. Politics is really at play in Jamaica, Scratchy, and disappointingly so. But thankfully, Scratchy, I think we have the right government in place, and irrespective of the noise the opposition wants to make, it's really just noise, Scratchy, because the government passed the bill, they can move full speed ahead with the reconstruction. Isn't that so?
Definitely, neighbor. It's just nice, neighbor, to join up their base, neighbor. Join up their supporters, join up their surrogates, neighbor, because what Naira has shown me, neighbor, is that there are a lot of Jamaicans, neighbor, who live in the brain. Even if some of them are brain, neighbor, even some of them, neighbor, brain, neighbor, it's not functional, you know?
But hold on. What former Prime Minister said a little thing about something we eat out them brain and got into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, neighbor, man, a lot of these guys, neighbor, that Naira showed me, neighbor, there are a lot of Jamaicans who have brain, neighbor.
God Almighty, help us.
And even if they have a brain, neighbor, it is clearly not functioning, neighbor, because I can't see, neighbor.
Can't see it either.
Anyone, neighbor. I can't see, neighbor, anyone with 2 eyes, neighbor. Anyone with a conscience, neighbor, anyone with a brain, neighbor.
Objecting to a bill like this.
Exactly. Cannot see the importance, neighbor, of Naira and what Naira is set out to do, neighbor. It's just so shocking to me, neighbor, when I look at some of the purpose, neighbor. Who I see voicing there.
Objection.
And for me, neighbor, I don't have a problem, neighbor, with persons contributing to the bill, neighbor, the bill being critiqued, neighbor, because this is a bill, neighbor, that's going to have an impact on our whole society. So I don't have a problem, neighbor.
Yes, and our future.
Exactly. What my issue is, neighbor, is that my granny always tell me, neighbor, that it's not what you say, but how you say it, neighbor, and I don't get neighbor from the persons who are rebutting against
a constructive critique of what is happening.
Yes, I'm not getting that constructive critique of the bill, neighbor. I am not getting that feeling, neighbor, like, okay, we know this bill and we want this bill to go through.
But change that and make it push forward.
I am not getting that vibe, neighbor, from the critique, neighbor, towards the bill, neighbor. All of the critique towards the bill, neighbor, is basically, neighbor,
delay.
Singing the same tune, like delay or trump the bill in totality, you know? So when I see those type of rhetoric, neighbor, I read that type of reading that they want to trump the bill totally and delay the bill, neighbor. It showed me that, neighbor, that these persons are not for the advancement and the development of Jamaica, because when you look, neighbor, gone are the days, neighbor, when government and majority of government infrastructure, neighbor, whatever government is spending on infrastructure, neighbor, is spread across the length of Kingston and St. Andrew, neighbor.
Quite so.
That is why, neighbor, we have so many parishes that suffer from social decay, infrastructure decay, because past governments at the time, neighbor, saw it fitting based on the fact that Kingston was like the heartbeat of Jamaica, the commercial hub. They pushed most of that investment, neighbor, in trying to advance Kingston to a certain level, being that it is also a capital city, and never left a lot of our towns and rural areas behind.
Yes.
You know,
urban blight.
Urban blight, neighbor. Nara now is here to transform that, neighbor. Nara is fair, Nara is balanced. In the Prime Minister's budget debate, or the budget speech, neighbor, the Prime Minister, you hear how much plan the Prime Minister outlined, neighbor, for each and every parish across Jamaica, neighbor, in regards to Nara. So it goes to show, neighbor, that this is definitely, neighbor, one of the most significant bill in Jamaica, neighbor, towards our infrastructure change. When you look at the funding that is also in place, neighbor, one of the most significant amount of funding, neighbor, that will go directly towards the infrastructure of Jamaica. And I think a lot of Jamaicans, neighbor, understand what Nara is about, neighbor, because one thing I know with people, neighbor, people understand what they want to understand, you know. And especially Jamaicans, neighbor, Jamaicans understand what they want to understand. That is always why when time person saying that in terms of the communication, the government not communicating better, I always hold a different stance and say people listen what they want to listen to hear what they want to hear.
Let me put something to you, Strachi. Hold on a little bit. There is a new rhythm that dropped in Jamaica called the Hilangoli Ride rhythm. You see that? And it's on every young person's lip. You don't think that we need to integrate our culture into these serious discussions, Scratchy, and use the culture to push the government's message and agenda?
Neighbor, it is so difficult, neighbor, to do that, neighbor, because when you look at the language, neighbor,
then why not put it on the Hilangoli Ride rhythm?
When you look at the language, neighbor, that surrounds our governance structure, neighbor, some of the jargons that are regular, neighbor.
Yes.
Our governance structure, neighbor.
But there's a man picking girl money.
Our phrases and words that will definitely.
Yes.
Our phrases and words that will definitely fly over the common person. But it goes back to what I'm saying, neighbor, that persons hear what they want to hear, because the same way our government put out every information, neighbor, it's the same way government put out when there's an increase in the part program.
Yeah, and minimum wage, yes.
And whenever part increase, neighbor, everybody know.
Yes.
Everybody know when part increase.
And they know that party. They know that party is going to be increasing tomorrow. Well,
yes,
next week.
So you know the part increase, but they don't know nothing else that has to do with government. People take on to what they want. Information is something that people take on to what they want to take on to, neighbor.
Yes.
Because everybody crossing the time, but they know when time part raise, they know when the minimum wage, and it's the same way the government put out every single piece of information. So people just take what they want to take, neighbor.
Yeah, wouldn't it be fascinating, Scratchy, if all schools this week, the teachers used 15 minutes to introduce Nara to the students at the primary and secondary school level. You know, just to have a session, just introduce it into the curriculum for a week or so that the students could go home and help their parents understand what it is. You don't think that would be a good strategy?
Definitely, neighbor. Even some of the pamphlets and booklets, neighbor, that government is going to create, neighbor, because I expect, neighbor, that based on the large funding of NARA, neighbor, I expect that there will be an intensive public education drive, neighbor, towards NARA, neighbor. So I would say to the government, neighbor, be creative.
Yes.
About this public thing, neighbor, because don't try to push too much of that funding neighbor towards
Thank
traditional
Wally.
media.
Yes.
Towards traditional media neighbor, because we know how the viewership of traditional media is neighbor.
Yes.
Trying to go into the schools neighbor, high schools, primary schools, to pamphlets and guides and you know.
Yes.
And talking points and presentation neighbor, present Nara.
Yes. What if the Ministry
neighbor,
of Education should lead a PR where you go to the devotions and just for 10 minutes?
I agree 100%.
Just introduce the high school students to NARA and give them the information. I think they would go home and educate their parents.
Yes, a massive public education campaign must be done towards the neighbor, but it should not just be geared neighbor to traditional media and put it over the ear and who catch it and who don't catch it. It should be crafted in a way neighbor where it reach neighbor and where it has over the effect. And I believe neighbor that in the schools is somewhere neighbor, because based on what is going on in Jamaica neighbor, even though NARA have a 5-year plan neighbor, if after 5 years neighbor NARA is free from any corruption and free from any major scrutiny neighbor, I see NARA extending neighbor.
Yeah.
I definitely see NARA extending.
Well, I made some calls. Well, I had a little meeting with a focus group earlier today in my area, and I was suggesting that we have a community meeting to talk about NARA. That's my community. And we are hoping if any minister is listening or any person in the government that is knowledgeable, I'd love you to get in touch with the moderator, because we want to put on a massive workshop meeting, community meeting, Cratchy, that discusses NARA, that just get people to understand what this thing is about for Jamaica. It is that critical, Scratch, that it deserves the investment.
And Fridays, Fridays neighbor, especially when it comes to Mountain Fridays, our towns neighbors are always a buzz. Have some little social presentation going on in the town.
Yes.
Pamphlet, giving out guides.
Yes.
Just try to push the whole NARA thing neighbor, so that whenever someone across Jamaica hear this word neighbor, I don't sound.
Yeah, because Scratch, it's like a rebirth of Jamaica, a second chance to come again.
And for NARA neighbor to reach its true potential neighbor and to achieve its true goal neighbor, the citizens of Jamaica neighbor must be behind NARA 100% neighbor.
Fully agree.
If the citizens are not behind NARA neighbor, NARA will be a failure, because whatever NARA is about neighbor, it's for the advancement of the people. And if the people don't see it neighbor as a form of advancement neighbor, then NARA will definitely feel its objective neighbor. So I think it is in the best interest of the government neighbor to launch a massive neighbor public campaign neighbor. Not just any regular public campaign, one that is orchestrated, one that is creative neighbor, and one that directly meets neighbor every single sector of our society neighbor, and talking from students to working class neighbor, to our most vulnerable, which is our senior citizen neighbor. Every single thing that government push out right now neighbor, NARA should be attached to it neighbor, promoting NARA through some form of a brochure, pamphlets or guides or something neighbor. NARA is too important, NARA is too significant, NARA is too big of a deal for us neighbor to not push this thing neighbor from a national level.
Absolutely.
It is not something that is only going to benefit one sector of Jamaica neighbor. It is something neighbor that will have a ripple effect neighbor and every single part of our country.
Speak to me, Scorgia, about leadership though, because the leadership of the opposition leader at this time is again found wanting at this moment. Is that not true?
Neighbor, the leadership of the opposition in the neighbor, I always tell the neighbor, this is an organization neighbor where neighbor this is not as bad as all the PNP has always been neighbor.
Can you imagine Portia Simpson Miller voting no here?
Exactly. We can safely say neighbor that this is probably the worst PNP that we have ever seen neighbor. And we even go far as neighbor that if you look across the length and breadth neighbor for all the countries neighbor who follow the democracy neighbor rule neighbor, which is a government party and opposition neighbor, I would say neighbor compared to every single one across this globe neighbor, PNP right now is the worst opposition party neighbor in the whole world, because every other opposition party neighbor is trying to push neighbor for the advancement of their country. Meanwhile in Jamaica neighbor it is totally different. But an opposition party neighbor is only trying to push for the best interests of their political organization. So that goes to show you neighbor that the leadership of the PNP party neighbor, I think maybe to the PNP might be one of the best things. It might be Mark Golden neighbor is both what I would call neighbor, he might be a blessing to Jamaica. The fact neighbor that he's the one who put up himself there, and the Jamaican Labour Party use him as a beating stick. But he's also neighbor a curse neighbor to us in the same way neighbor. Because my reason neighbor for saying that he's also a curse neighbor. Every single thing neighbor, every single bill, every single thing that is brought before the parliament that has to deal with the advancement and the development of Jamaica neighbor, Mark Golding has pushed back against it neighbor. Mark Golding has chosen criminals neighbor over law and order neighbor. Mark Golding not directly, but indirectly neighbor by not voting with the government and bringing the government to court over the state of emergency neighbor. Mark Golding neighbor has chosen chaos and anarchy neighbor over formality in voting against the NITS bill and bringing the government to court neighbor over the NITS bill, which is the National Identification System. Where I can tell a neighbor that no democracy neighbor, I no country can truly neighbor reach its full potential of its people neighbor without a national identification system. Because a national identification system neighbor helps in terms of your growth and your development, knowing neighbor where is more unique, where want this and where want more healthcare, where fire station is needed, where a police station is needed, because this way neighbor you can keep track of what is going on and people have a better understanding neighbor of the movements of people and get understanding of where people live and what people need. So Mark Golding neighbor voted against us moving from the monarch. This man neighbor is alleged to be born neighbor in the country that rule over Jamaica in terms of our monarch, which is England neighbor. And Mark Golding is holding up our transition neighbor, holding up constitution reform. Constitution reform neighbor, moving away from constitution reform that is currently on the books neighbor talking about right now. Constitution reform is not just about moving away from the Queen neighbor. A lot of our outdated laws and a lot of our outdated legislation neighbor is also tied up in this constitution reform neighbor. Mark Golding right now is currently neighbor holding us up neighbor and constitutional reform. And to show you how he's such a hypocrite neighbor, this man was born in England, it is alleged neighbor. He up to now we don't know if this guy renounced his citizenship towards England neighbor. But yet still neighbor his reason for holding up the constitution reform neighbor is because he wants the Jamaican government to step away from using neighbor the British court as our final court of justice. What a hypocrite neighbor. You born in the country and it is okay for you to keep their citizenship, but you don't want us to use their system or their court as our final court of justice. So it shows you neighbor that how hypocritical Mark Jefferson Golding is. Mark Golding neighbor is also the one neighbor who is responsible for the political division that is going on in Jamaica right now neighbor. Mark Golding responsible neighbor for me and a lot of other neighbor rights neighbor after winning an unprecedented third term neighbor. 6 or 7 months into that third term, I am yet neighbor to drink a good glass of champagne and celebrate my victory neighbor.
Is that so?
Because before I could get any time to celebrate neighbor,
yes.
Mark Golding was around the country running like a mad dog neighbor.
Yes.
Campaigning again.
Oh my God.
I had to put on back my campaign in that neighbor.
Yes. You Green Clark. You're back in your Green Clarks?
I don't even get to pull the champagne good.
Oh
because Mark Golding neighbor is responsible for the high tension.
The fight is on.
Political climate across the entire neighbor. Mark Jefferson Golding neighbor is the biggest setback to the growth and development of Jamaica neighbor. And by his name that he and his co-leader is famously known as neighbor, Garfield and Sinclair neighbor, they are disingenuous neighbor.
Yeah.
They are not loyal neighbor.
Yep.
They are not patriot. Garfield and Sylvester neighbor should not sit in our parliament. It is a grave injustice neighbor to the Jamaican neighbor who commit suicide as a result of dealings that have to do with Garfield and Sylvester neighbor. It is a grave injustice neighbor to persons who took out loan and lost their mortgage because of increase of 100% or 80% in interest rate neighbor. It is a grave injustice neighbor to all of those persons neighbor who passed on. Neighbor, it is a great injustice to the 40,000 businesses that have to shut down. Some of them leave Jamaica, go build up Trinidad neighbor and leave Jamaica behind. It is a grave injustice neighbor to all of those people who suffer as a result of FinSat neighbor. To see Mark Jefferson Golding neighbor, otherwise known as Garfield and his co-pilots, Sylvester neighbor, sit in our parliament neighbor, because these two gentlemen neighbor, or these two posts benefited neighbor in a way neighbor that majority of us didn't benefit neighbor. Majority of their wealth that they have garnered over the years neighbor, it is alleged, it is a result of their dealings neighbor in FinSat. It is in America and Canada and these first world countries, neighbor, we call it insider trading. You go to prison for those things, you know. You go to prison for those things in these first world nation, neighbor. Insider trading, neighbor. After working for the government, neighbor, I know how the government books is, neighbor. I know what things are going on, neighbor. You invested on the dollar today, neighbor, because you know that you will have a big payday coming out in the future, neighbor. And you use the information that you had based on your position that you hold. And Sylvester and Garfield, neighbor, benefited of the backs of Jamaicans, neighbor. Sylvester and Garfield is why our hospital's neighbor was run down and doctors had to be using garbage bag as surgical, neighbor. Sylvester and Garfield is why JUTC was unprofitable over all of these years, neighbor. Sylvester and Garfield was the reason why, neighbor, our police station used to leak and police are dropped to the floor. Police never have car, police never have bike, police never have a good suit of uniform. Look at the police them now, neighbor. There are the days when time police never looks up. Police uniform didn't wash out, police would crack up all. Neighbor, Sylvester and Garfield single-handedly, neighbor, benefited of the backs of Jamaicans and Jamaica, neighbor. Ghana, they went off of the backs of Jamaica and Jamaican, neighbor. Watch majority of our country, neighbor, suffer, neighbor, as a result. And they should not be sitting where they are sitting right now, neighbor. I think it is a grave injustice to us, neighbor. And we should never see these guys on national TV. These guys should not be a part of our legislative system. I hear Cliff Hughes saying that Mark Golden is a great man. I don't see Mark Golden as no great legislator, neighbor, because what Mark Golden did the other day that the debate, neighbor. Mark Golden is a corporate lawyer, neighbor. And as a corporate lawyer, you are responsible for creating bylaws. You are responsible for creating bylaws for companies. You are responsible for creating the legal framework for these companies, neighbor. And in crafting a bylaw, neighbor, a bylaw is basically in some similarity to a legislation, neighbor. You have to make sure that they define certain words, neighbor, to a certain level, so that it doesn't come back to bite the company in the long run. Anything that you're saying must be precise. So Mark Golden, neighbor, in his training as a lawyer, neighbor, he garnered that skill, neighbor, how to make sure that words are properly described, neighbor, and how to craft bylaws which can equate to a legislation. But what he did, neighbor, and 3/4 of what Mark Golden said, a lot of well-thinking Jamaicans might say, yes, Mark Golden has said, because what he said makes sense. But what not realizing, neighbor, that the government side already think of everything that Mark Golden said, you know. The reason why the government side did not put that in the bill, neighbor, it was because of what the Prime Minister basically said to Mark Golden in the Parliament. Everything that you're saying and every point that you're making, it is already something that is already legislated already. It is already a part of our law. It is already in law, so it makes no sense to come and put it back in Naira. Mark Golden did not do nothing, neighbor, for critics to talk about him as great legislator, neighbor. You can come to the table, neighbor, and make 100 points, neighbor. And if none of your points were valid, and none of your points were added, neighbor, you cannot be classified as doing a good job, neighbor. As a winner, you do something great. None of our majority of Mark Golden points, neighbor, were not taking, neighbor. Because everything that he was saying, it might sound good and it makes sense. And the reason why it sounds good and makes sense is because it was already in law, neighbor. So Mark Golden, neighbor, was null and void everything that he said. Neighbor, PNP, led by Mark Golden, they would always be a space of PNP, and I can tell everybody this. PNP will never become irrelevant, neighbor. They would always be part of our society, neighbor, because there are two-party society. We have JLP. As long as you have labor right, you would always have PNP. But I can tell you, neighbor, as long as Mark Jefferson Golden is the leader of the People's National Party, neighbor, they will never see power, neighbor. Oh. Because one thing with Jamaica, neighbor, they don't like fakeness. Looking at Mark Golden, neighbor, you can see that he's not authentic, he's not genuine, and most importantly, he's not real. He does not identify with us, neighbor. We cannot identify with him either. We cannot identify with Mark Golden in no way, shape, or form, neighbor. Neither an identity, neighbor. He doesn't possess the same appearance as much as us as Jamaicans, neighbor, in terms of our key traits that we have. He doesn't portray us, neighbor, in our living condition. Not to say that we are all sufferers, but I can tell you, neighbor, that 90% of Jamaicans don't live or grow up, neighbor, how Mark Golden grew up, and I'm not bashing him for how he grew up, neighbor, because he had no control over how he was growing up, neighbor. But based on the structure and the nature, neighbor, of our country, and what our Jamaican citizens need and what Jamaicans are feeling, neighbor, Mark Golden cannot tell me, neighbor, that he understand what it feel like when a man tell him say hungry. Mark Golden cannot tell me, neighbor, when he understand when a man tell him say he can't find lunch money to send himself to school. So I think, neighbor, it was hypocritical again of the People's National Party, a political organization that brand themselves, neighbor, as a party for the poor, a political party that brand themselves, neighbor, as loving the poor, caring for the poor, neighbor. Michael Manley, PJ, Patty, some Portia Simpson, neighbor. And for them neighbor to come and show Mark Goldie neighbor in the face of PNP neighbor based on Mark Goldie upbringing, Mark Goldie financial status, and Mark Goldie level of elitism neighbor, it was a disrespect to the PNP supporters neighbor, and disrespect and a trample upon them own organization and their belief and their mission statement neighbor as being the party for the poor. Your leader is way out of touch, and no, Jamaica can't identify and cannot relate to them neighbor. And I will land neighbor by famous to say neighbor, for Jamaica to grow, PNP must go.
Classic scratchies on the app, TikTok, YouTube. Wow, come through. What a night tonight, Tuesday. Oh, the 5th of May, 2026. Look at the time, 21 minutes after 10 o'clock. And we're going to bring the curtains down on the program tonight. Power Man, take it over.
Night, neighbor.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Okay, I'm good, neighbor.
Yes.
Yes, neighbor. Tonight show was a cracker.
What crackers? You say is Excelsior water crackers?
No, it was a cracker.
A cracker. Oh. You mean cracker when they use crack nuts?
Cracker, yes, crack all them tough boat in them time.
Yes, sir. Okay, it was a cracker.
Yeah.
Well, the sagacious Prime Minister we started with him. How are you doing?
Yes, neighbor. I like the notes. There was it was powerful. It was an unrelenting note. I love the notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, sir. I want to. My taxi is here. My taxi is here. I don't want to laugh too much and stay here too late. $2,000. Hold on. $2,000. I see you. How you doing? $2,000 TV. Big up yourself. Yes, sir. The notes were unrelenting.
Yes, sir. And Mr.
Scratchy
as usual.
Oh my God.
Always,
yeah.
Powerful, you know.
Uh-huh.
Always deliver aggressively as usual. You know?
Yes.
But neighbor, what is going on in the political atmosphere? There's a word. I have a word, neighbor. And
yes.
It's the panacea for the what is going on. Yeah. You have a word, neighbor.
Panacea.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The word is ipsy-dipsyism.
The word is what?
Ipsy-dipsyism.
Ipsy-dipsyism.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Now, what does that mean?
Yeah, that word means unfounded, false, dogmatic assertions.
Ispidispism.
Yes, neighbor.
Good God, I get you. Cuss bad word. Hold on, sir. Hold on. Don't make a cuss bad word on the program yet. It's a brand. It's a brand time program. Ispidispism.
Yes, neighbor.
Uh-huh. How many ism? Come true, proper.
Yeah.
Time is going.
The reason why I chose this word, neighbor.
Yes.
In regarding to the Naira bill.
Oh, ispidispism.
Right? Yeah, the opposition party is an ipsy-dipsy party.
Oh my God.
Because whenever things is for the betterment of this country.
Yes.
Right? They brought it ipsy-dipsyism to derail the work of the government.
My moderator is going to kill me, but I have to play this.
Ipsy-dipsyism.
Yes, sir. Hold on. Ispidispism. So use that in a sentence for me now, please, sir.
All right. The PNP is an ipsy-dipsy party and it's a hindrance for the country.
They are hindrance to the country, sir.
Yes, neighbor.
Oh my God. Okay. The opposition People's National Party, they are an ipsy what?
Ipsy-ism party.
You're too good. You are too good.
And
yeah.
Neighbor.
Uh-huh.
One more word.
Yes, sir. Ipsy-dipsy-ism.
The Naira bill.
Yes.
Is a branding nagging bill.
Is a what type of bill?
Wrong the nagging bill. It's a huge bill, and it should pass that the people of Jamaica can get help, especially the poorer class. Yeah. This bill is too huge to waste and lavish in the house, neighbor. This bill needs to pass and implement so that people can get their life together and certain development to place in the country.
Yes.
This is how I see it. We can't allow the People's National Party to derail everything that this government put forward for the betterment of this country. We are not going to take in any criticism from the PNP, neighbor.
Classic. Classic power man is on the up. He's out of Portmore. Boy, I tell you, sir, you've given us much tonight to chew on. I don't want you to cause me to cuss bad one.
Oh gosh.
I tell you. Take that. Wonderful. I'll catch you tomorrow.
Okay, neighbor. Nice.
All right.
Talk to everybody. Okay.
Yes. And I will have to say that brings the curtains down on our show tonight. It's a wonderful show. We'll be back here tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Pray for me. I pray for you. Together, we do this for you again tomorrow at 7 o'clock. 8 o'clock in Florida and 7 o'clock in Jamaica. Until then, have yourself a fantastic night. And moderator Caroline,
Hi.
you want to say hi and goodbye to my YouTubers, please?
Say that again, please.
You want to say hi and bye to my YouTubers?
Of course, neighbor. Just a moment, please. Okay, so good night, everyone. Just want to say thank you to all our listeners and viewers across the YouTube, X, TikTok, and Patreon. Thank you for being with us tonight. Your time, your engagement, and your voices are what make this platform powerful. Every comment, every share, every moment you spend with us helps us to push meaningful conversations forward and keep the mission alive. We don't take your support for granted. You are the reason this movement continues to grow and reach people who need truth, clarity, and perspective. From all of us, thank you for showing up, for staying engaged, and for believing in what we're building. See you at the next show tomorrow at 7 p.m. Have a good night, everyone.
Fantastic, Caroline. You deserve a drink for that. Great. What a surprise. Wow. Great moderator, Caroline. Thank you, YouTube. Take care of yourselves. Catch you tomorrow. Stay with me, TikTok. Stay with me. All right, Caroline, you can just log me out of YouTube, as we say.